Our story kicks off with a pint-sized wannabe wizard waving a stick around like he owns the place. He is playing hero against his friend who is fully committing to the monster role. But our boy takes the roleplay a little too seriously and straight up bonks her on the head. She immediately breaks character to complain that monsters are supposed to lose gracefully and not get actual concussions. She whines that she wants to be the wizard instead and takes her complaint straight to the village elder who just rolled up. The kids ask the old man what it takes to actually become a magic caster. He hits them with the cold hard truth. Wizards are the absolute apex of humanity who sit at the top of the food chain. So no, two random village kids have zero chance of ever becoming one. The guy behind him is sweating bullets and wondering why the elder is out here ruthlessly crushing the dreams of literal toddlers. But the old man brushes it off because they have way bigger problems to deal with right now. The younger guy asks if the rumors are true, and the elder confirms the worst. A massive shadow leopard the size of a house was spotted prowling near the village entrance last night. The mom quickly hugs her daughter and tries to keep the panic out of her voice as she promises that the village chief is already heading to the city to hire a real wizard to save their hides. The village adults are doing damage control with the kids. The mom promises that the chief is bringing back a wizard to pack up the monster. The old man pats the little girl on the head and tells her the forest is strictly off limits. He grabs his walking stick and drops a harsh truth bomb. Fighting a monster without a wizard is basically a guaranteed game over. One of the guys asks if everyone in the village actually got the memo. The elder is completely clueless and asks who he is talking about. We cut to the peaceful outskirts of town. Meet our boy Tehran. He is out here living the ultimate soft life, just catching some rays with his sheep and a very good boy. But honestly, he is bored out of his mind, just staring at the sky while his flock goes about their business. It is the exact same routine every single day. Tehran complains that he is literally going to forget how to speak at this rate. Suddenly, he spots someone ruining his vibe. The old man from earlier pulls up and immediately starts roasting him for slacking off before the sun even goes down. Our boy is just trying to catch some rays when this old geezer blocks his sun. He tells the boomer to move, but the old man has the audacity to call him ill-mannered. Our guy just smirks and asks if he is still salty about that time he tried to steal his dead mom's sheep. He makes it crystal clear he is not sharing his inheritance. They are not friends, so the old man needs to spit out what he wants and kick rocks. The sheer disrespect has the elder shook as our boy stands up to dust himself off. Turns out there is a massive leopard monster roaming around. The old man warns him that he is prime real estate for a monster snack, but our shepherd does not even flinch. The village chief is already begging the city for a wizard to handle it. The geezer tries to play the caring grandpa card, claiming he came to check on him. But our boy sees right through the cap, calling him out for only caring about the livestock. He tells the old man to get lost because his breath is literally rotting his nose. Savage. The elder storms off while our guy goes right back to petting his fluffy sheep. Our boy reflects on these so-called monsters, beasts that wield mysterious magic. He is honestly just hyped that a real-life wizard is coming to their backwater village to deal with it. Sure, a rural village chief probably cannot afford top-tier talent, but our shepherd still wants to see one in action to gauge just how strong they actually are. Suddenly his nose twitches. He catches a whiff of something foul on the wind. His eyes widen as he realizes that metallic scent is definitely blood. Following the scent trail, he heads straight into the dark tree line. He tracks the smell down a dirt path, completely unfazed by the obvious danger lurking in the shadows. He stops in his tracks as he stumbles upon a gruesome scene. It is the old man from earlier, completely shredded. Looks like the guy who told him to be careful ended up being the monster's first course. Our boy follows the scent of iron and finds the old hater completely shredded. The irony is thick since this guy literally just warned him to be careful. Looking at the massive claw marks, our shepherd realizes this definitely wasn't a regular bear attack. The monster is real. Suddenly, a massive armored paw slams into the dirt behind him. Our guy turns around to find a giant shadow leopard built like a tank staring him down. This thing is absolutely massive and glowing with some serious bad vibes. We cut to a quick flashback where a little kid asks his dad if adults can actually fight these things. His dad drops a plate of pancakes and some harsh reality. He admits that if a regular guy tried to fight a monster, there wouldn't even be bones left to bury. But he promises the village chief is bringing a wizard to save the day. The kid asks if the wizard will actually win. The dad smiles and hypes up wizards as absolute gods born with magic who can pack up a monster with a single word. Cut back to the present where this giant beast is roaring right in our shepherd's face. Our boy just smiles. He remembers his old man hyping up wizards as these god-tier beings who can one-shot monsters with a single word. But Tehran is built different. He stands his ground in the dark forest ready to test that theory out. The giant beast lunges forward expecting an easy snack. But instead of running, Tehran just flares up with this insane red aura. He shouts a single command and sends the massive shadow leopard flying back into the dirt. He scratches his cheek, looking more annoyed than terrified. The monster is absolutely furious now. It recovers instantly and charges right back at him, tearing up the ground with a massive swipe. Tehran smirks, realizing his little parlor trick was not enough. He knew a simple command would not kill the thing, but he is genuinely surprised it did not even slow it down. The beast crashes down again, its yellow eyes glowing with pure rage. Our boy leaps back to create some distance as the monster tries to turn him into a human kebab. Deciding it is time to stop playing around, he reaches into his pouch and pulls out a rock. If magic words will not cut it, a shepherd is going to do what a shepherd does best. Deciding to stick to his roots, our boy pulls out his trusty sling. The massive stone leopard charges him like a freight train, but he is not sweating it. He loads a regular rock and drops a single word. Harden. Magic surges through his hand as he winds up the leather strap. His eye glows a brilliant gold, channeling that sweet wizard juice right into his makeshift ammo. Planting his foot firmly in the dirt, he issues his final command, pierce through. The sling snaps forward, launching the rock with the force of a literal railgun. The glowing projectile rips through the air and slams right into the charging beast. Rocks shatter and blood explodes as the beam drills straight through its thick armor. The monster's massive jaws snap down right in front of him, but our shepherd just flashes a cocky grin. He casually mentions he was aiming for the head. The beast's entire dome gets blown clean off, leaving its massive headless corpse to crash into the dirt. Our boy turns his back on the carnage because cool guys don't look at explosions. He stands over the massive headless corpse and casually notes that this was his first time using his trick on an actual monster. Looking at the absolutely shredded remains, he wonders if he should just chuck the mess into a valley or something. Wiping blood off his face, he grumbles about how those village bastards sure know how to put him to work. Wiping monster guts off his face, our boy reflects on the absolute carry job he just pulled for these ungrateful townsfolk. He finally admits the truth, he is a wizard. Flashback to 8 years ago when he was just a 10-year-old kid. He realized he had some serious telekinetic juice and started floating the entire kitchen just for the vibes. But then his mom walks in and drops her cane in absolute shock. He remembers this day perfectly because it was the first and literally the last time his mom ever got furious with him. She snatches a floating log right out of the air and tells him they need to have a serious sit-down. Looking him dead in the eye, she asks if he wants to keep living with her. If the answer is yes, he has to promise to lock those powers away and never use them in front of another living soul. She asks if he remembers the dark lore about the nobles and the knights. The kid nods, knowing exactly what she means. He remembers his mom dropping some heavy wizard lore. The top-tier nobles are basically descendants of the divine beings who saved humanity back in the day. But knights are just the half-bloods, and the wizard community definitely discriminates. She warns him that the stuck-up nobles outside their little bubble treat knights like absolute garbage. Basically unpaid interns, but worse. So she makes him swear to never let anyone know he has magic. Fast forward 8 years and our boy has been a good son. He kept his promise to the letter. He just chills in his cabin on the mountain with zero desire to flex his powers or even go down to the village and deal with people. But his peaceful hermit life gets rudely interrupted by some aggressive banging on his front door. He opens it up to find a whole mob of angry villagers ready to throw hands, but instead of panicking, our guy just hits them with the most disrespectful yawn of the century. Our boy yawns right in the face of the angry mob. They accuse him of killing the old man and tossing him to the monsters as a snack. The big guy grabs him by the collar, screaming about how shameless he is, but our guy is completely unbothered. He calmly points out the obvious. They are just trying to frame him to cover up their own massive cowardice. Instead of the young guys stepping up to fight the beast, they sent the oldest dude in the village to do it alone. He hits them with a mocking smile, saying he totally gets why they need a scapegoat right now. That strikes a nerve. The big guy winds up a massive haymaker, but our boy just leans back and easily dodges it. He reflects on how ridiculously convenient magic is right before delivering a brutal counterpunch that absolutely shatters the dude's nose. Seeing their leader get dropped, the rest of the peanut gallery charges in with their little wooden clubs. Our guy just smirks. He does not even need to go all out or cast any crazy spells. He just uses a tiny fraction of his power to effortlessly dodge their sloppy swings and send them eating dirt. Our boy effortlessly catches the incoming club and decides to dish out a little lesson. He holds back just enough to keep them breathing, casually dismantling the angry mob with a few swift strikes. As the would-be attackers hit the dirt groaning, he brushes off his hands, reflecting on how he has successfully hidden his wizard status for 8 solid years. He shoots a glare at the remaining townsfolk, silently asking if they want a piece too. The women immediately start sweating, nervously stammering that they just came by for a friendly visit. Yeah, right. Leaving the idiots outside, he heads back into his cabin and sheds his heavy coat. He grumbles that the town is going to be a chaotic mess again, and they will definitely try to use this little scuffle as an excuse to rip him off on trades. But whatever, he figures he can just beat them up until they offer a fair deal. Problem solved. Thinking he has finally earned some peace and quiet after handing out that proper whooping, he closes his eyes to relax. But of course, a loud aggressive knocking immediately starts hammering on his door. Muttering that these people must have a death wish, he angrily yanks the door open, ready to throw hands again. Our boy swings the door open, ready to hand out more beatdowns, but instantly freezes. Instead of a pitchfork mob, he is staring up at a massive dude in a trench coat. The giant awkwardly apologizes for the intrusion. Tehran is completely thrown off. A random traveler out in the middle of nowhere is definitely not on his bingo card today. He scrambles to remember the basic manners his mom taught him since he usually just roasts the local peasants. He spots a heavy sword strapped to the guy's hip and realizes this is no ordinary tourist. Tehran puts on a fake customer service smile and offers to point him to an inn but is immediately interrupted by the loudest stomach growl ever. Our boy just lets out a heavy sigh. Cut to the inside of the cabin where Tehran has apparently whipped up a whole medieval feast. The scarred giant absolutely demolishes the bread and meat while our shepherd plays the humble host, claiming they do not have much to offer. The traveler is shocked that Tehran has never met an outsider before. Our boy casually sips his soup and feeds him the standard NPC dialogue. He claims he was born on this hill and has just been a simple shepherd his whole life. But the giant narrows his eyes, taking a long chug of his drink. He is definitely scanning our boy for red flags while Tehran just plays it cool and takes a sip of his own. The traveler chows down and compliments our boy's manners. He says for a backwoods shepherd he is surprisingly polite. He figures the kid's mom must have raised him right and is probably chilling with the gods up in heaven. The silver-haired host just plays the humble card. He says he is just living how his mama taught him. The scarred guy casually mentions he is out in the sticks because someone asked him a favor. Our boy connects the dots and realizes this dude is the big-shot wizard the village elder would not shut up about. The traveler confirms it. But then the wizard starts getting suspicious. He chews on his jerky and points out that he senses a monster nearby. What is really bugging him, though, is how calm our host is. For a sheltered shepherd who knows there is a giant beast on the loose, he is not exactly running for the hills. The wizard drops the pleasantries and straight up asks who he really is. This triggers a flashback to his childhood where his mom drills a very important lesson into his head about why he has to keep his magic a total secret. In a flashback, our boy asks his mom why he has to keep his magic on the down low. She drops some harsh truths, explaining that if the corrupt nobles are the shepherds, then the knights are just the disposable dogs they keep on a leash. They might get a few head pats, but they will absolutely get sold out or sacrificed the second things go south. She tells him she refuses to let him live that kind of life. If he wants to stay with her, he has to promise that absolutely nobody can ever find out he is a wizard. Otherwise, the higher-ups will snatch him away and turn him into just another obedient mutt. Snapping back to the present, our guy remembers her final chilling warning. Keep his secret safe, he might just have to put people in the dirt. The scarred traveler grips his sword, realizing this random shepherd is way too calm about a giant monster roaming the woods. He demands to know who our boy really is, and the room instantly goes ice cold. The tension in the room is thick enough to cut with a knife. Our silver-haired boy is staring a hole straight through his guest. He leans in and demands to know why the guy is dodging his questions. The scarred dude immediately starts sweating bullets. He awkwardly rubs his neck and laughs it off, claiming our boy's deadpan stare just completely ruined his joke. The kid just blinks, completely missing the punchline. Our boy apologizes for having literally zero sense of humor. The old man stands up and waves it off, admitting he is the one who should be sorry. He was just so caught off guard by a supposed wizard cracking a joke that he took the teasing way too far. Realizing they have been chatting this whole time like strangers, the old man finally extends a hand. He introduces himself as a simple wanderer. Our boy shakes it right back, apologizing for his lack of manners and officially introducing himself as the local shepherd. Over a hearty meal, they start swapping stats. Our boy drops that he is 18, while the wanderer casually flexes that he is pushing 75. When our boy points out he looks way too good for a senior citizen, the old man explains that wizards age like fine wine and live way longer than normal humans. Curious, our boy smiles and asks how a guy like him ended up living out of a backpack. The scarred wizard explains that after decades of serving some fancy noble family, he decided to spend his golden years backpacking across the country instead of settling down. He flashes a surprisingly warm smile for a guy who looks like he eats nails for breakfast. They end up chatting straight through the night. As the sun peeks through the window, the old-timer realizes he completely lost track of time and decides he better hit the road. He drops a pure silver coin on the table to cover his tab. Our boy gratefully accepts the tip. The wanderer tells him not to act like this is a final goodbye, fully planning to crash on his couch again someday. The next morning it is back to the daily grind. Our shepherd stands on the hill overlooking the town and casually commands his fluffy flock to gather up. The sheep instantly snap to attention and waddle right over. He reflects on the night before. It was his first time ever meeting another wizard, but more importantly, it was the first time in years he actually had a comfortable conversation with a decent human being. Our boy gives his fluffy livestock some head pats, reflecting on the old man's surprisingly chill vibe. He always assumed night wizards were just emotionless corporate lapdogs for the arrogant nobles, but this guy actually passed the vibe check. Meanwhile, the boomer wizard is taking a stroll through the local woods, noticing the obvious signs of a massive throwdown. But there is zero monster energy left behind. He figures the village chief must have double-booked the extermination job with another wizard. Honestly, as long as the beast is dead and the paycheck clears, he is totally fine with clocking out early. But before he can even pack up his gear, his spidey senses start tingling. He whips around just in time to see a massive grotesque claw stomp down right behind him. Turns out, if you do not clean up a dead monster's mana, it respawns as a nightmare fuel wraith. And this multi-jawed abomination is looking at our guy like he is a light snack. The scarred wanderer is out in the woods trying to play detective. But before he can piece together who already packed up the monster, a massive shadow claw drops from the sky. He barely dodges the impact as the ground explodes into dust. He realizes that if a dead monster's mana isn't absorbed, it turns into a nasty wraith. Leaping high into the air to avoid another swipe, he does the math mid-backflip. Whoever killed the beast was definitely a wizard, but why would they just leave the loot behind? He lands smoothly knowing a rookie knight couldn't have pulled off the initial kill. Wondering if the mystery killer had some hidden agenda, he decides to just blast the problem away. He channels a massive surge of yellow lightning into his hands and fires a heavy beam of energy straight at the beast. But the monster just tanks the hit like it was nothing. The wanderer starts sweating bullets, realizing his magic was completely nullified. This thing's mana pool is way out of his league. Suddenly, the beast melts away into a dark puddle on the ground. The old man frantically looks around, trying to figure out where it went. But he really should have checked his blind spot, because a bubbling liquid shadow starts stretching right out from under his own boots. The scarred wanderer is getting absolutely bodied by this shadow wraith. The beast smacks him with a massive attack and sends him flying. Our guy is coughing up blood and quickly realizes this thing is way out of his pay grade. He notes you would need a noble-ranked wizard to even scratch this beast. Sliding across the dirt, he pants heavily. He cannot believe he stumbled into a raid boss in some random mountain village. The massive beast looms over him, and he knows this is probably the end of the line, but he refuses to go out like a chump. If he is going down, he is taking this overgrown shadow puppet with him. He channels every last drop of his mana into his hand and sparks up a desperate yellow flame. His plan is simple. Wait for the monster to lunge and shove that fiery fist straight into its face. The beast dives and claws first, and our scarred wanderer leaps up to deliver his final blow. But before he can even connect, a massive blue flash of magic completely obliterates the monster. The wanderer is left completely dumbfounded as the giant wraith drops dead right in front of him. It just got sliced clean in half by a mystery savior. The scarred wanderer is sweating bullets. He turns to see our boy strolling up like it is just another Tuesday. The old guy admits that Shepherd joke really caught him off guard. He is absolutely shook, realizing who just saved his life. The wanderer demands to know why the kid kept his power a secret, but then he pivots and asks the real question. Why step in and save him when he could have just walked away? Our boy just smirks, starts to explain. A quick flashback hits to their cozy little cabin chat over a dead wolf. The kid had asked the old man why he was slumming it out here in the boonies when a guy with his skills could be making bank somewhere else. The wanderer just looked at him and called the villagers pitiful. The old guy explained that these people are out here terrified and defenseless. He dropped some heavy lore, saying wizards inherited god powers, so they should flex that privilege by protecting the weak. He admitted not every magic user agrees, but everyone has their own way of living. Back in the present, our boy just flashes that same smile. He throws the old man's exact words right back at him. Our boy drops a wholesome line about everyone having their own way of living, but before they can hold hands and sing Kumbaya, a massive explosion rocks the forest. The scarred wanderer gets blown back and realizes they are completely out of their depth. He yells at the kid to run back and evacuate the village. This giant shadow beast is strictly noble tier, and the old man knows he is basically just a speed bump. He ignites his hand with fire magic, fully prepared to become a martyr just to buy the shepherd some time. But then he catches a glimpse of something absolutely wild. The kid casually levitates a massive boulder with bright blue mana. He brushes off the monster's previous attack, leaving the veteran knight completely flabbergasted. He cannot fathom how a runaway mountain kid is about to solo a wraith that would make actual nobles wet their pants. The old man realizes this is not just some reckless bravado. Our boy unleashes a massive surge of magical energy, lifting a whole meteor shower of rocks into the air. He flashes a cocky smile, finally ready to test his own limits and show this shadow kitty who the real apex predator is. This massive wraith is looking like a final boss. But our boy just smirks. He has been hiding his magic for years and is finally ready to test his absolute limits. The scarred veteran tries to play the wise mentor. He lights up his fists and yells that they need to team up. But before he can even finish his sentence, the beast lunges forward. The old man is left completely stunned by the sheer speed. Realizing he is totally outclassed, the veteran powers down. He knows he would just be dead weight in this fight. His only job now is to sit back and watch the kid pop off. And right on cue, our boy unleashes a massive cross-shaped blast of pure blue energy straight into the monster. But the hype dies down real quick. The kid drops a sweat as the beast tanks the hit like it was nothing. The veteran screams out the obvious. He reminds the kid that physical attacks are completely useless against a wraith. The giant rock monster just keeps charging right at him. So our boy decides to switch up his elemental loadout. He reaches out a hand and his eyes start glowing with literal galaxies. Then he just blasts the ugly thing with a point-blank wave of fire. Our boy realizes his big flashy move did absolutely nothing. The old knight is flabbergasted. He yells that to hurt a wraith you need proper causality. Basically, you cannot just punch a ghost. The boomer realizes our shepherd must have killed the original monster and left it to rot without absorbing its mana. As the kid keeps dodging, the old man is shook. He cannot believe this kid is already this strong without ever absorbing mana in his life. He switches to coach mode and yells at him to make a fire and shoot it instead of just lighting one. Our boy does not hesitate. He dashes right back into the danger zone and instantly conjures a swirling fireball in his palm. He stands his ground against the massive beast ready to cook. He winds up that spicy fastball. With a heavy step, he slams his fiery hand right down onto the wraith, causing a massive explosion. The monster screeches as it gets absolutely deep fried. The old man screams at him to keep his mind focused and pour mana into the flame so it does not go out. You have to burn every last trace of the wraith away. Our boy holds his ground looking like an absolute menace while he roasts this overgrown spirit into ash. Our boy stands there looking completely unbothered while the old knight is absolutely flabbergasted. He realizes that was a noble class wraith they just fought, a monster that should have wiped the floor with them. But this random mountain shepherd just casually packed it up like it was nothing. The veteran tells him to hurry up and absorb the monster's mana before another wraith spawns, but our guy just blinks and asks how to do that. The old man sighs and tells him to just imagine draining the energy into his body. So the kid closes his eyes and gives it a shot. Instantly, bright green energy starts leaking from the carcass. He holds out his hand and pulls the swirling green mana straight into his core. His eyes snap open, glowing like neon signs as the raw power courses through his entire nervous system. The old knight watches his veins light up like a Christmas tree and is completely speechless. He tells the kid he should be feeling a rush of pleasure right now, but he honestly cannot believe what he is seeing. He asks if this really is his first time ever absorbing mana because his innate potential is just off the charts. The old knight is absolutely flabbergasted. He explains that mana usually grows slowly with age or by grinding mobs and absorbing their energy. But this was our boy's very first time slurping up mana. The fact that he can already handle magic at this insane level means his innate potential is completely off the charts. The old man realizes he is standing in the presence of absolute greatness. He immediately drops into a deep respectful bow to apologize for his previous disrespect. Our silver-haired protagonist is just standing there sweating bullets from the awkwardness. Before he can even process the sudden VIP treatment, the old guy's arm just casually explodes with blood. Fast forward to inside the cabin, the boomer is all patched up in a sling. He starts yapping again, apologizing profusely for making someone so esteemed play nurse for him. Our boy just sighs and reminds him for the 100th time that he is literally just a shepherd who does not even know who his dad is. He hits the old man with a death glare until the guy finally backs down and tells him to chill. Looking out at the humble farm, the knight points out that this peasant lifestyle really does not suit a guy with god-tier magic. Our boy explains that it was his mother's dying request. Right up until she kicked the bucket, she warned him that the nobles down below the mountain were absolute snakes. If they ever found out he was a wizard, they would just use him as a pawn and toss him in the trash. The old knight nods in agreement, admitting that his mom was actually incredibly based and wise for that. The old man admits the kid's mom actually had a point. He drops some heavy lore about a massive turf war 20 years ago between the great noble houses. It was an absolute bloodbath. Out of 3,000 knights on his side, nearly a third got wiped out. And in a classic tragic backstory twist, every single person he cared about was in that unlucky 33%. His buddy who just wanted to open a laundromat, his strict mentor, and even his own family. All gone. So yeah, a knight's life is basically a coin toss. But the old guy points out one major flaw in the mom's logic. Our boy isn't just some run-of-the-mill knight. The veteran admits it stings his pride a bit, but the kid effortlessly one-shot a boss monster that was about to pack him up in a box. That kind of raw power puts him at noble tier minimum. This throws the shepherd for a loop. Did his mom lie about his dad being a knight? The old man clarifies that genetics are just weird sometimes. You can get a total dud born to nobles or an absolute unit born to regular knights. With that kind of lottery-winning talent, he tells the kid it is time to pack his bags, leave this boring hill, and actually see the world. The old knight drops some lore, explaining that humanity is not exactly running the show yet. With ancient races waiting in the wings to make a comeback and noble houses too busy playing Game of Thrones with each other, the world is a total mess. That is exactly why this era desperately needs a powerhouse with a good heart like our boy. Plus, let us be real, he is definitely bored out of his mind playing babysitter to a bunch of sheep. Our shepherd boy stays quiet, actually giving the pitch some serious thought. The veteran points out that whether he wants wealth, fame, or just a decent social life, he will not find it on this lonely hill. He could become a wandering monster hunter, an explorer charting the unknown, or even get adopted by a noble house to fast-track his way to the top. Hearing all these options, our boy finally admits the old man has a point. Literally anything sounds better than staring at grass all day. For the first time in his life, he is genuinely hyped to see what is out there in the real world. The old knight promises to back him up no matter what path he chooses, hoping he is not just gassing the kid up for nothing. Then he realizes he skipped step 1 and asks what our boy's bloodline ability actually is. The old-timer apologizes for geeking out on magic lore. He explains that noble wizards inherit special bloodline abilities from their ancestors. He asks our boy if any specific spells feel like a total breeze or if he has some crazy non-magical talent just chilling in his back pocket. The kid looks at his hands and admits he is not naturally buff since mana just acts like a passive stat boost. But he does have a crazy good sense of smell and a wicked pitching arm for throwing stones. The veteran notes that a super sniffer definitely counts as a bloodline trait. Throwing weapons is a classic House Arabian move, but it is pretty basic. Suddenly the gears start turning. The kid looks dead serious and says he thinks he finally knows exactly which noble house is in play here. The old knight gives a little smirk and asks him to drop the name. They stare out the open door as the bombshell drops. A great house famous for being relentless pursuers and hunters. Flashbacks hit of brutal warriors standing over slaughtered bodies. It is House Zahar. You know, the exact same house that completely massacred the old man's entire family and wiped out House Arabian. The kid's eyes go wide as the dark realization sets in. Yeah, talk about an awkward roommate situation. Our boy is absolutely shook. He just found out his bloodline belongs to the great House Zahar, the exact same family that slaughtered the old knight's entire squad and family. He starts sweating bullets, wondering if he needs to drop a formal apology for a bunch of murderous relatives he hasn't even met. But the scarred veteran just hits him with a warm smile and a reassuring pat on the shoulder. He tells the kid to chill out. It is grown folks' business, and our boy was not even alive to participate in that war. The old man drops some wisdom, saying that trying to wash blood with more blood just leaves everyone stained and fighting forever. The kid asks if the veteran regrets telling him to leave the mountain now that the truth is out. The old man shakes his head. He knows that with the kid's insane abilities, he is bound to get scooped up by the Zahar family eventually, but he genuinely trusts the boy's character. The veteran drops a massive truth bomb. If a good kid like him climbs the ranks and takes over the Zahar family, he could actually stop another bloodbath from ever happening. Our boy goes quiet, letting the heavy expectations sink in. The old man quickly tells him not to sweat it too much, since he has not even packed his bags yet. Our boy finally makes up his mind. He tells the old knight he wants to head down the mountain and see the world. The veteran gives him a nod of approval but tells him to hold his horses. Our guy agrees to stick around until the old man is fully healed, which makes the battle-hardened knight a little soft inside. Back inside the cozy cabin, it is time for a crash course in Magic 101. The old knight explains that mana is basically the cheat code to the universe, often called the key to omnipotence. But our boy points out it is not actually all-powerful. You need the right type of mana to match the spell you want to cast. The veteran holds up 3 fingers, breaking down the difficulty of magic into 3 main factors: bloodline, affinity, and causality. He starts with bloodline, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is the genetic lottery you are born with. For example, our boy cannot just magically heal the old man's wounds. But some folks from the Southern Revista bloodline can pop healing spells without even trying. That is the power of good genetics. Next up is affinity, which basically boils down to familiarity. Our boy instantly gets it, realizing this is why he was able to chuck a fireball earlier by just imagining he was throwing a rock. The old knight confirms he is spot on. If he had just tried to spawn raw flames out of nowhere, it would have been a total flop with 0 speed or firepower. The old knight drops the most important rule of magic on our boy: causality. If the kid just tries to straight up delete someone using raw mana, he would probably just end up glowing like a human glow stick. The old man demonstrates by hovering his hand over a mug. Without a logical cause for a desired outcome, the mana just fizzles out and boils the water instead of doing anything useful. Our boy catches on instantly. To kill someone, he needs to provide a logical cause of death, like say a giant ball of fire. He casually spawns a perfect fireball right over his drink, leaving the veteran knight absolutely hyped at his genius-level talent. The kid wonders why magical beasts are so tough to control when he can easily mind trick regular animals. The old man explains it all comes down to their internal mana reserves. Even the local livestock are eavesdropping on this masterclass. Our boy realizes magic is way more than just throwing energy around, and a true mage has to understand the actual science behind the spells. Curious about his own newly discovered roots, the kid asks if his Zahar bloodline comes with any built-in perks. Turns out his ancestors were top-tier assassins specializing in stealth and tracking. The old man tells him to give it a test drive. Our boy closes his eyes and focuses hard on completely erasing his presence. No sound, no smell, no sight. He literally starts vaping out of existence right in the middle of the room, leaving the old man wondering if the kid actually pulled it off on his first try. The old knight scans the empty room and confirms our boy is completely vanished. A second later, the kid just materializes out of thin air like a literal ghost. He just unlocked his family's signature stealth magic on the very first try. The veteran admits that this exact ability used to absolutely terrify his comrades back in the war. It is insanely overpowered, but he warns the kid that it is not invincible. He then casually offers to teach our boy some proper magic training methods. The kid is a bit confused why this guy is handing out free tutorials to a literal enemy bloodline, but the old man just smiles. He says he trusts the kid's character. Cut to the village chief absolutely losing his mind. Our boy is fully packed up and officially putting in his 2 weeks notice effective immediately. The chief demands to know who is going to watch the sheep now, but the kid just sighs. He tells them to figure it out themselves and demands a fair price for his flock. If they refuse, he is just going to release all the sheep into the wild and let the villagers play the worst game of tag ever. The chief sweats bullets, realizing this kid is dead serious and deciding it is definitely not worth irritating the guy who just soloed a giant monster. Our boy secures the bag literally after forcing the village chief to buy his sheep at a fair price. Now he is hitting the road with the old knight. He wonders why the veteran did not shake down the villagers for the compensation they owed, but Kiorn just brushes it off, pointing out that our boy was the one who actually flatlined the monster anyway. Fair point. Hitting a fork in the dirt path, Kiorn drops the bad news. They have to split up here. He apologizes for turning down the co-op invite, claiming he is just a solo player at heart. Tehran does not sweat it, thanking the veteran for all the free game and hoping they meet again under better circumstances. As he watches the old man walk away, it finally clicks for our boy. Even though his mom gave him plenty of love growing up, he had always secretly craved a father figure. He wanted a role model to show him how to be a real man, but there is no time to get emotional now. The tutorial is officially over, and our boy steps foot into the lawless wastelands. The scene shifts to a windy, rocky desert canyon, where our boy is trekking all by his lonesome. He pulls his hood up against the harsh weather and spots a group of cloaked figures in the distance. Hoping they are just friendly neighborhood merchants, he decides to go say hi. He approaches the squad to ask for directions to the nearest city. The leader is a guy rocking an eye patch who tells him that following the road they came from leads straight to a city called Murray. Our boy thanks them for the pro tip and tries to casually stroll past their cart. But one of the goons steps in his way and demands payment for the free information. He tells our boy to hand over his bulging bag right now. Suddenly, the whole group draws their swords and surrounds him like he is the main course. Our boy just smiles as the leader mockingly admits they are actually bandits. The eye patch guy demands the bag and cloak while they are still being nice. He holds a blade right to our boy's neck and threatens to end him in this lawless wasteland if he does not comply peacefully, since stripping a bloody corpse is just way too much work. Our boy stares down the eye patch leader and quickly realizes these guys aren't just petty thieves looking for pocket change. They are straight-up murderers ready to catch a body in the middle of nowhere. But instead of panicking, his mind flashes back to his cozy little cabin training arc with the veteran knight. He remembers learning the exact mechanics of causality and how to perfectly conjure a fireball over his mug without blowing himself up. The old man gave him the ultimate crash course in combat magic. So our shepherd just hits them with a devious smirk. He looks the bandits dead in the eye and announces that he is going to use these bozos for some much-needed target practice. Our boy flashes a cocky grin and decides these desert rats are the perfect target practice. The bandits just laugh in his face. They think this kid has lost his marbles claiming to be a wizard. But the joke is on them. He casually sweeps his hand down and summons a massive green tornado right out of thin air. The wind blasts the entire crew away like ragdolls. Our guy realizes that physically shaping the wind with his hands uses way less mana than he thought. The bandits are left groaning in the dirt, completely clueless about what just hit them. Not done flexing yet, he pops open his flask and draws out a stream of water. With a flick of his wrist, he freezes the droplets into razor-sharp ice crystals. One of the thugs can only stare in absolute terror before getting completely skewered by the frozen shrapnel. Our overpowered shepherd looks at his glowing hand and actually complains. He figures just throwing rocks would be way faster and hit harder than this fancy water spell. The bandit leader drops to his knees, begging for mercy and offering anything to spare his life, but it is all a cheap distraction. 3 of his goons leap from the shadows for a sneak attack, but our boy is already one step ahead and pivots out of the way. The bandit leader is absolutely flabbergasted. He looks up in pure horror as our boy stands over him like a literal god of death. His entire crew just got turned into human shish kebabs and he is the only one left off the grill. The silver-haired menace steps up and asks a simple question. Why did they jump a solo traveler without a plan when he could easily be a wizard? The bandit stutters out the most pathetic excuse ever. He says that because our boy bowed and greeted them politely, despite their rudeness, they just assumed he was an ordinary scrub. Our boy takes notes, realizing that being too polite in this world is basically a giant kick-me sign. The bandit leader thinks this means he gets to live and begs for mercy, but a single droplet of water forms above his head. A quick flashback hits, showing his old mentor dropping some absolute facts. The veteran wizard warned him to never show mercy to absolute scum who harm others for a quick buck. He laid it out crystal clear. Sparing a life out of pity could end up getting 10 good people killed. Taking that lesson to heart, our boy pops the bandit's head like a water balloon. With the trash taken out, he smiles and decides it is time to hit the road. Following the tracks left by the bandit cart, our boy finally has a moment to process what just went down. The reality sets in. He just caught his first bodies. Sure, he feels a little guilty about turning those guys into human shish kebabs, but he remembers the old man's warning. If he let them walk, they would just go back to robbing and killing innocent travelers. Remembering his mentor's harsh but true lessons helps settle his chaotic heart as he steps out of the desert. And just like that, he arrives at his destination. He stares in absolute awe at the massive city of Murray spread out before him. Stepping into the streets, the farm boy is completely overwhelmed. He has never seen this many people in one place before. and the towering architecture is a massive upgrade from the dirt huts back home. He wanders up to a local fruit stand where the vendor eagerly welcomes him, asking what he wants to buy. But our guy completely misses the social cue and bluntly states he is not actually a customer. Remembering his old mentor's advice to find an inn for the night, our boy tries asking a local fruit vendor for directions. But the guy immediately tells him to kick rocks if he isn't buying anything. Our shepherd is genuinely baffled, wondering if buying a snack is some kind of mandatory city toll just to ask a question. Deciding to play along with the local customs, he points to some apples and asks for the price. The vendor clocks him as an outsider right away and says he accepts foreign coins. Our boy hands over the cash and finally gets his directions to a blue-roofed building down the street. He arrives at the biggest joint in town, a massive pub and inn. Inside, he is greeted by a blonde staff member named Lena who immediately hits on him, calling him a handsome guest. When he asks for the room rate, she hits him with a 16 ducat price tag with a bright smile. He tosses her a whole pouch of coins, saying he has a question that needs answering. He asks if there are any monsters nearby with a bounty on their heads. He knows he needs to hunt beasts to absorb their mana and level up his magic. Plus, his mentor mentioned it was a solid side hustle. Lena just stands there smiling at the coin in her hand without saying a word. When he asks why she is giving him the silent treatment, she gestures to the room and reminds him that absolutely nothing in this world comes for free. Our boy settles in with a drink and asks where he can find some monster bounties to cash in on. The barmaid is absolutely stunned by his lack of basic street smarts. She roasts him for being a total country bumpkin and explains that he needs to hit up the city hall for official bounties, but they are definitely closed for the night. She asks if he is a monster hunter trying to become a wizard. Tehran is completely lost. She explains the local urban legend that if a regular dude kills enough monsters, they magically level up into a spellcaster. Before Tehran can call cap on that ridiculous superstition, a massive hand slams onto his shoulder. A buff dude named Madan jumps in, claiming it is 100% true because he saw it happen with his own 2 eyes. The barmaid is shocked this meathead is even still alive, but Madan just laughs it off, swearing he refuses to kick the bucket until he gets his magic powers. He gives Tehran a rough pat on the back, apologizing for the intrusion. But our boy is actually super intrigued and asks him to spill the tea on this whole monster hunting loophole. The barmaid breaks down the meathead math. Since real wizards get stronger by hunting monsters, these guys figure the exact same principle applies to regular humans. Madan proudly introduces his squad of wannabe mages. Tehran asks if any of them have actually pulled it off yet, but Madan shuts that down fast, admitting there are literally only 4 real wizards in the entire city. The headband hunter scoffs at our boy's shabby gear, asking if he even has a weapon to hunt with. The shepherd casually whips out his trusty old sling, noting it is perfect for quickly firing egg-sized projectiles. The hunter nods, figuring it is at least good enough for bagging low-level rabbits or foxes. Since his squad is short a ranged attacker, the hunter invites our boy to join their party. The silver-haired kid just flashes a polite smile, keeping his overpowered wizard status completely under wraps. Later that night, our boy crashes on his in-bed, completely exhausted. It has been a wildly chaotic day, and he still can barely process the fact that he actually left his quiet mountain village. Wondering what his future holds, he casually sparks up some blue magic in his hand. Suddenly, a sharp knock at the door interrupts his thoughts. He immediately sits up, his relaxed demeanor vanishing in an instant. His mind flashes back to a warning from his scarred mentor. The old knight had drilled it into his head that a city is never automatically safe, and he should never let his guard down even when resting at an inn. Taking that advice straight to heart, our boy approaches the door. He channels a massive surge of blue telekinetic energy into his hand, fully prepared to blast whoever is on the other side into the next dimension. Our boy cracks the door open, ready to blast whatever bandit or monster is on the other side. He narrows his eyes, fully expecting a fight. But instead of an assassin, it is just the innkeeper girl from downstairs. She hits him with the classic "Were you asleep?" line and says she came up to keep him warm. Our shepherd boy is completely clueless and asks what she means. The girl just blushes and starts untying her ribbon with a slicey smile. Looks like our boy is about to get a very different kind of magic lesson tonight. The blonde maid decides to shoot her shot. She corners our boy in his room and offers to do absolutely anything he wants for a small fee. When he asks what happens if he doesn't want anything, she leans in close and purrs that she can read his face. Unfortunately for her, our shepherd boy hits her with the ultimate deadpan stare. His mind immediately flashes back to his old mentor screaming at him to avoid inmates like the plague. The old man had warned him that even with their wizard disease resistance, catching an STD and passing it on to a future wife was a massive rookie mistake. Utterly humiliated by the rejection, the maid furiously stomps back down the stairs. Meanwhile, our boy just chills in bed. He thinks city folks are totally cold-hearted for putting a price tag on basic human interaction. But his thoughts are interrupted when he overhears a conversation from the floor below. One of the hunters asks their buff leader why he tried to recruit a scrawny kid who looked completely useless. The leader jokes that a cocky mouth makes for perfect monster bait, but then he admits the real reason. The kid reminded him of his younger self, and he figured keeping him close was the only way to make sure he survived. Hearing this, our boy cracks a smile, realizing the city might not be so heartless after all. Our boy wakes up the next morning feeling pretty optimistic. He figures the city isn't completely heartless after all and heads straight to the local guild to secure the bag. He steps up to the counter and tells the mustached receptionist he wants to hunt monsters. The guy gives him a deadpan stare, basically asking if this skinny kid is joking. Turan instantly flashes back to his old mentor Kiorn, dropping some harsh truth bombs. The scarred veteran warned him that the world has zero reason to be kind to a random nobody. The only way to get ordinary people to bow their heads and show respect is to reveal you are a wizard. But since Turan is keeping his magic on the down low, he just takes the disrespect on the chin. The receptionist slides over a bounty poster and tells him to memorize it, since he cannot take it with him. Turan stares at the absolute kindergarten doodle of a three-legged crow and asks if this guy seriously thinks it looks like a cat. The guild worker ignores the roast and lays down the law. If he actually manages to kill a monster, he has to bring the corpse back to the city. Leaving a monster to rot means its unabsorbed mana will mutate it into a massive wraith, and causing that carries a strict death penalty. Turan grimaces, remembering the colossal abomination he accidentally created back home, and promises he will not make that rookie mistake twice. When our boy asks why the city's elite knights do not just hunt these things themselves, the receptionist scoffs, pointing out that those nobles have way better things to do than clean up the woods. The guild receptionist hands our boy a crude drawing of a monster bird. He explains that fancy knights handle city security while disposable thugs like him get sent outside the walls to die. The mustache guy practically writes him off as a future corpse the second he turns around. But plot twist, cut to a dead monster bird with a massive hole blown straight through its chest. The guild staff are absolutely flabbergasted. Our guy just casually drops the carcass on the floor like he just went on a quick grocery run. He stands there with a completely blank face and asks for his cash. The receptionist is sweating bullets and immediately hands over a fat bag of coins while telling him to go get some well-deserved rest. The other workers are losing their minds over how pristine the monster's blade wings are. Usually these things get mangled in a fight. The mustache guy is still trying to process this absolute unit of a hunter when our boy drops another bomb. He asks if there are any other monsters worth hunting. The receptionist is left completely speechless, realizing this kid is just getting started. Our boy treats himself to an absolute feast to celebrate his fat new wallet. The blonde waitress is totally amazed he cleared out the local monster population in just 3 days and assumes he is just in it for the bag. But the shepherd drops a cold truth bomb. Cash is just a side quest. His real grind is sucking up that sweet monster mana to level up his magic. He has already multiplied his power since leaving the mountain, but he is hitting a hard plateau. Farming low-level mobs just is not cutting it anymore if he wants to reach the big leagues. The tavern staff are just happy to see a customer actually clear their plates. The beefy head chef wipes his brow and promises to cook up something even crazier next time. But before our guy can even leave a tip, a grimy hand snatches his shoulder. A squad of local thugs rolls up looking to tax the new kid since they heard he has been making bank. But of course making bank attracts the local bottom feeders. A random thug grabs our boy's shoulder, calling him a skinny runt and demanding some charity. Turan happily obliges, delivering a 5-finger discount straight to the guy's jaw that sends him stumbling back. He calmly asks if he still wants that donation. The thug's buddy tries to sneak in a right hook, but Turan casually swats it away and counters with a brutal gut punch. A third guy thinks a wooden stool is going to level the playing field. Turan just catches it with his bare palm and taps the dude on the forehead, instantly shutting down his operating system and dropping him to the floor. The blonde waitress is absolutely living for the drama, flashing a huge grin and screaming that there is a tavern brawl going down. The fun is cut short when the muscular hunter from earlier steps in and bows a full 90 degrees. He sincerely apologizes for his crew acting like absolute clowns, explaining that they have been super tight on cash lately, and his guys just got jealous seeing Turan flex his new wealth. The musclehead forces his goons to bow and apologize. Our boy asks if they are really struggling that badly. The hunter clenches his fist and admits they are completely broke and about to get kicked out of the inn in 3 days. Turan tosses him a heavy pouch of coins. He calls it repayment for the guy trying to look out for him earlier. But he makes it clear that nothing in this world is free. The hunter flashes a massive grin and promises to spill every piece of intel he has. Later on, our boy stands at the edge of the forest. He figures this will be his last hunt in the area. The hunter gave him a ton of useful information about the next city over, so it is time to pack up and move on. He realizes the guy might not be a hardened veteran like Kiorn, but he is definitely a good dude. Suddenly, his eyes go wide. He catches a nasty scent in the wind and immediately blasts off into the trees at top speed. Our boy is out in the woods for what he thinks is his final hunt in the area, but his spidey senses start tingling when he catches a nasty scent on the breeze. He tracks it down and finds some massive, fresh claw marks gouged into a tree trunk. Following the trail, he stumbles upon a gruesome scene. A guy is slumped against a tree, absolutely covered in his own blood. Our shepherd takes a closer look and recognizes the poor dude. It is one of the guys from the hunter group that tried to recruit him earlier. The kid just stands there in stunned silence. The hunter is completely gone with his lifeless eyes staring off into the void. A bloody hand rests limp on the dirt right next to a few scattered silver coins. Our guy crouches down next to the mangled corpse, trying to piece together what kind of monster could have done this to a seasoned hunter. Our boy finds the boisterous hunter completely battered and bleeding out against a tree. He asks what the hell happened, but the guy can only cough up blood and choke out a single syllable before fading fast. A quick glance around the clearing reveals the rest of the hunting crew absolutely slaughtered, and the culprit is just sitting there casually munching on a corpse. It is a giant fluffy rabbit with glowing red eyes and a mouth full of human blood. Our shepherd wizard turns his attention to the beast, but before he can even blink, the psycho bunny launches itself into the air. It closes the distance in an absolute blur. Our guy barely manages to dodge the incoming fur missile, sweating bullets as he realizes just how ridiculously fast this thing is. The rabbit touches down, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Not wanting to become rabbit food, our boy immediately goes on the offensive. He swings his arm and channels his mana, launching a massive crescent blade of blue magic right at the beast. But the killer bunny just casually swats the magical shards away like they are annoying flies and keeps charging right at him. Our boy locks in, realizing this specific technique is perfect for countering projectile attacks. But this oversized furball isn't throwing weapons, it is throwing its entire body. The giant rabbit leaps into the stratosphere, aiming to flatten him like a pancake. With glowing red eyes locked onto its prey, the beast charges in for the kill. But our guy is way too fast for that nonsense. He instantly vanishes into thin air and reappears right behind the overgrown bunny. Before the monster can even process what just happened, he sinks his blade deep into its neck. Blood sprays everywhere as our shepherd lands gracefully back on his feet. Blinded by the pain, the rabbit completely loses its footing and violently crashes headfirst into a massive tree. The impact is so insane that the entire trunk snaps in half, sending a massive shockwave of dust across the forest. The giant timber comes crashing down, pinning the screaming beast right into the dirt. A few drops of blood hit the ground, and just like that, the demonic bunny is officially out of commission. Our boy stands over the fresh carcass and reaches out a hand to claim his prize. Bright green mana swirls up his arm, and he is absolutely floored by the sheer volume of it. This oversized bunny is packing way more juice than that giant shadow leopard he packed up back home. He literally cannot believe his luck. But the hype train derails when he checks on the slaughtered hunting party. He notices the last surviving guy is actually a wizard who was hiding his identity. He asks the dying man if any of them have families he can send their belongings to. The poor dude just sheds a tear and uses his final breath to call out for his boss. And yeah, the headband-wearing hunter boss is already bleeding out in the dirt. Seeing the guy dead triggers a flashback to their tavern hangout. The hunter boss pitches a massive nearby city called Orem. He mentions a giant library packed with thousands of books. Our boy instantly perks up at the word books, but the hunter warns him that the place is super exclusive and only verified wizards are allowed inside. Good thing our shepherd is secretly a magical prodigy. He looks out over the forest and makes his choice. He is heading to Orem. Our boy stands before the fresh graves of the fallen hunters. He gives them a final look and hopes they find peace in the afterlife before hitting the road again. He joins a massive queue of travelers and realizes his previous awe for Murray was totally misplaced. This new place is the great city of Orem, and it is an absolute unit of a metropolis. He is super impressed by their tight security system, right up until a guard points a fat finger in his face and denies him entry. Apparently our shepherd is looking a little too crusty for the big city and gets told to go dust his filthy clothes off. After finally getting inside, he spots the legendary library his buddy mentioned. The massive vine-covered tower is completely overwhelming, and he figures it has to be built with magic. He strolls right up to the grand entrance but immediately catches the attention of two very serious-looking guards. Our boy finally makes it to the giant library, but the bouncer immediately blocks the door. The guard tells him this VIP club is for wizards only. When our guy casually drops that he is one, the guard completely loses it. He calls him a lunatic and threatens him with the death penalty for stolen valor. The guard reaches out to physically check his vibe, claiming there is zero chance a dusty kid like him has any magic. But our boy remembers his old mentor's advice. Wizards can instantly clock each other's power levels just by sensing their mana. So our shepherd decides to give him a little taste. He flashes a terrifying glare and unleashes a massive wave of pure, unfiltered aura. The sheer pressure of his flex hits the guard like a literal truck. The dude instantly collapses to the pavement in absolute terror. He realizes he just messed with a total monster and starts sweating bullets, figuring out this kid has to be a high-ranking noble. Suddenly, the guard is all yes sir and no sir. He begs to know which noble house our boy belongs to. Our guy just asks if he needs to dox himself to get inside. The guard stammers out a quick no, but explains he still needs official permission from the local lord to actually read anything. Cut to our boy soaking in a luxurious bath, letting out a massive sigh. He really thought checking out a book was going to be a quick side quest, but now he is stuck dealing with high society politics. Our boy finds himself in the middle of a massive indoor pool getting scrubbed down by a full squad of maids. He is completely out of his element and asks if he can just wash himself. but the maids start sweating bullets and beg him to let them do their jobs or they will get punished for neglecting an esteemed guest. Over at the Grand Estate, the maids finally finish their masterpiece. One of them literally gasps and covers her mouth in pure shock. Our shepherd boy has been fully transformed into a high-class noble, tying his hair back like he belongs on the cover of Vogue. The head maid starts trembling and apologizes for losing herself in his beauty. He tells her it is no big deal, but she begs him to stop being so polite to the help. As he checks out his fresh look in the mirror, a pink-haired girl struts into the room with her giant butler. She immediately starts roasting him for showing up looking like a literal beggar, but admits that after a good scrub, he actually looks like a prince. Her butler nervously begs her to stop insulting the guests, but she is clearly not the type to care. The pink-haired girl asks which noble house our boy belongs to. Tehran plays the mysterious card, claiming he cannot say for personal reasons. She smirks, finding it a total shame. Figuring he is just hiding his true identity, she decides to pull a little prank. And by prank, she means casually detonating a massive pillar of fiery aura right in his face. She demands he show her his mana, leaving our boy sweating bullets as he stares down this absolute menace. Our boy is caught completely off guard as his eye flares with blue magic. He instinctively unleashes his aura to block a massive burst of fiery energy from the pink-haired noble. The two auras violently clash right there on the fancy patterned floor. The shockwave is so intense the giant butler has to physically shield the screaming maids from getting blown away. As the energy finally dissipates, our shepherd lets out a massive sigh of relief. But the crazy girl just smiles and flexes her gloved hands as the residual magic crackles away. She looks right at him and casually drops the wildest opening line ever. She leans in close and straight up asks if he wants to marry her. Our boy's brain completely short-circuits. He just stands there frozen in absolute disbelief and sweats bullets while trying to process what just happened. Seeing his soul leave his body, she bursts out laughing and claims it was just a joke. Even her butler looks embarrassed for her. But before she leaves, she tells him to think about it since she is currently single. Our boy just watches in stunned silence as the chaotic noble struts out of the room, leaving him to wonder what kind of crazy house he just walked into. Our boy's eye twitches as the sheer scale of the magic registers. His hand is literally shaking. He just realized this random pink-haired noble has mana reserves that actually rival his own. He is standing there sweating bullets, wondering if every noble in this city is secretly a walking nuke. But there is no time to panic because he is immediately summoned to the big boss. He stands before the Lord of Aurum, Rugvaltas, who welcomes him like a VIP. Our guy plays it cool, giving a polite bow and introducing himself as just Tehran. The Lord gives him a heads up right away. He says a lot of folks show up chasing wild rumors, but he promises there is no ancient forbidden magic or secret mana-boosting hacks hidden in their books. Tehran is totally fine with that, so the Lord tells him to crash for the night and hit the books tomorrow. Tehran thanks him for the VIP treatment. The next morning, our boy pulls up to the massive ivy-covered tower. The guards bow like he owns the place as the heavy doors swing open. Tehran steps inside, his eyes widening as he takes in the sheer scale of the Sky Library. A massive spiral staircase stretches up toward the light, lined with more books than he could read in a lifetime. Our boy steps into the massive Sky Library and is immediately blown away by the sheer scale of the place. His awe is cut short when a tiny girl in an oversized robe pops up to introduce herself as the head librarian. Tehran just stares at her in disbelief, wondering why they have a literal toddler running the archives. She immediately gets all up in his personal space to lay down the ground rules. Break it, you buy it, and absolutely no stealing. She also promises to stare at him the entire time he reads. Tehran gently pushes her back and politely asks for a restraining order while he studies. Undeterred, she asks what kind of flavor he is looking for today. She offers him romance or history, or even something a little spicy. But our deadpan shepherd completely ignores the bait and just asks for a crash course in basic common sense. The pint-sized librarian happily obliges and slams a massive stack of ancient encyclopedias onto the table. Tehran picks up the heavy tome with total reverence. Having lived on a mountain his whole life, he is finally holding his very first book. Our boy hits the books hard. He is absolutely amazed by the sheer volume of knowledge in this place, making it his daily routine to just sit at the massive library tables and grind through the texts like a college student cramming for finals. He finally starts to understand the world's geography and the different races out there. From little fairies and massive orcs to mermaids chilling on rocks. He even brushes up on wizard etiquette and how various magical items and weapons are manufactured. Closing his book, he heads to the Lord's office. The old man sitting at the desk notes that our guy has been making excellent use of the library. But nothing in life is free. The Lord flat out tells him it is time to pay up for all that goodwill. He asks our boy if he wants to hunt a monster for him. Apparently 4 knights already went out to subjugate the beast and ended up as an all-you-can-eat buffet. The Lord rubs his temple, complaining that a noble should step in personally, but his house is short-staffed and can only spare 2 people right now. Our silver-haired wizard puts on a polite smile and agrees, saying that protecting people is exactly what a wizard ought to do. But deep down, his spider sense is tingling. Something feels completely off about this request. Aren't noble wizards usually the type of people who avoid getting their hands dirty with peasant problems like this? The Lord explains that a monster has been blocking their northern trade route for 10 whole days and they need it cleared out ASAP. Our boy immediately connects the dots. The only reason this guy let him into the VIP library so easily was because he needed a mercenary to do his dirty work. Soon enough, the expedition party marches out of the castle gates. The pink-haired noble girl stretches her arms and immediately starts complaining about her dad making a huge fuss over a simple monster hunt. She turns back and whines that mobilizing a guest is just insulting their own knights. The friendly dark-haired guy sweating bullets next to her asks if calling the Lord fussy is a bit much. She just hits him with a death glare that shuts him right up. The guy introduces himself as Marvin Valtas and says he looks forward to working together. The squad hits the swampy forest trail with the pink-haired girl leading the charge and demanding they finish this quickly so she can go back to bed. Marvin leans in and asks our boy if he has any interest in his big sister. Tehran just gives him a blank stare, which Marvin takes as a no and breathes a massive sigh of relief. But before they can bond over how annoying she is, the knights up front suddenly order everyone to stop. The squad ventures deeper into the woods and stumbles upon a completely wrecked carriage. One of the knights points out that since the northern road was blocked, these poor merchants must have come from the south right into an ambush. Tehran takes a closer look at the debris. He spots a massive handprint pressed into the wood and casually drops the bomb that they are hunting a giant monkey. The pink-haired noble girl gives him a blank stare like he just spoke a foreign language. Tehran explains the beast likely hit the caravan and dipped back into the trees. He suggests they track it down, but the young miss admits her tracking magic is basically non-existent. Marvin is just as useless. Tehran sighs and picks up a torn piece of cloth. This prompts the girl to ask if he belongs to a certain famous hunter bloodline. Using his magic, Tehran leads the group straight to a nearby river. The pink-haired girl starts over-analyzing. She wonders if a dumb beast really washed itself just to throw off their scent. Tehran deadpans that maybe the giant monkey just wanted to take a bath. Suddenly, Tehran's heightened senses pick up on something sketchy. He whips around and screams at the two nobles to watch their backs. Suddenly, a massive red-eyed ape monster leaps out of the bushes with a screech. Before the squad can even react, the beast chucks a massive boulder right at them. The generic guards scream in terror right before getting absolutely flattened into a bloody paste. Our boy immediately leaps back to get some distance. He watches calmly as the crushed soldiers suddenly stand back up with glowing eyes turning into undead puppets. The pink-haired noble girl barely dodges as her own reanimated companion lunges at her. Tehran just watches from the sidelines, realizing his mom was totally right about how messed up the outside world is. The noble girl furiously screams at her remaining men to attack. The knights try to surround the giant ape, but the monster immediately decides it doesn't want the smoke and bolts through the trees. The squad tries to chase it down, but the beast is way too fast and starts leaving them in the dust. The pink-haired girl realizes they are losing the beast, but suddenly a rock whizzes right past her face. It leaves a glowing blue trail as it threads the needle past the whole squad and goes straight into the monkey's mouth, shattering its jaw in a bloody explosion. The girl and her buddy look back in absolute shock to see our boy calmly strolling forward, spinning his trusty sling like it is just another day on the farm. The pink-haired noble girl and her knight buddy are hauling ass through the forest, trying to catch up to their target, but they are losing ground fast, and suddenly a stray rock nearly takes her eye out. Before she can even blink, a massive beam of light crashes down from the heavens right between them. It blasts straight into the roaring ape monster and instantly turns the ugly bastard into a solid chunk of stone. The duo stops dead in their tracks and looks back to see our boy Tehran strolling up like he owns the place. He has a glowing ring of magic casually spinning in his hand as the petrified beast shatters into pieces behind them. Talk about an entrance. Not wanting to be outdone, the pink-haired girl spins around and screams for the remaining monster to die. She flexes her own crazy mana and unleashes a massive fiery snake spell that completely engulfs the beast in a blazing inferno. The massive fire snake detonates in a glorious explosion. Our silver-haired boy watches the fireworks, immediately recognizing the signature pyromaniac bloodline of House Valtas. The surviving knights are looking absolutely cooked. The pink-haired noble admits that giant flying rock actually gave her a scare, but she quickly deflects by roasting her brother for screaming like a little girl. He obviously tries to deny it. Meanwhile, the regular soldiers are in absolute shambles. One guy is crying about his injured arm, but his buddy tells him to suck it up since another dude literally got his entire limb blown off. They are desperately scrambling for spare bandages and trying to patch up a nasty head wound. Tehran surveys the bloody aftermath and thinks to himself that they are incredibly lucky nobody actually died. Sure, it was a surprise monster attack, but these noble kids have bodies reinforced by massive amounts of mana. They are way tougher than regular knights, yet they still did not hesitate to use the weaker soldiers as meat shields. Typical noble behavior. Our boy just gives a knowing smirk while the siblings bicker. They finally gather around the crispy charred remains of the giant ape monster. Tehran steps right up and extends his hand, ready to slurp up all that sweet leftover mana. Our boy steps up to the charred corpse and starts slurping up that sweet green monster juice. He realizes the books were right. Sharing the loot does not actually dilute the stat boost. But while he is just getting started, the noble siblings hit their absolute limit. The pink-haired girl finally gets why her dad sent this random shepherd along. His spell proficiency is off the charts, and his mana tank is basically a bottomless pit compared to theirs. As the squad limps back to the castle gates at sunset, the black-haired knight gives credit where it is due. He admits they would have been totally wiped out if our guy had not tracked the beast and landed the critical hit. But our boy just waves it off like it was a light warm-up. He casually drops some lore, explaining that monsters develop specific skills based on their physical traits, like how big hands equal a killer throwing arm. The knight is absolutely mind-blown by this big brain deduction, but our guy bursts his bubble and admits he literally just read about it in a monster encyclopedia at the local library. The pink-haired girl gags at the thought of that dusty old place, complaining that the books are way too hard to read. Our boy hits her with a cheeky smile and suggests she ask the librarian for some picture books next time. This just leaves her completely confused, since nobody even knows a librarian exists in that place. Our boy realizes something doesn't add up. He asks the pink-haired noble if there was even a librarian working at that massive tower. Flashing back to his study session, our guy realizes he was way too careless. No commoner in this city would ever address a noble by their actual name. Plus, this tiny girl in pajamas doesn't exactly scream head librarian. The girl gasps as he calls her out. She hops up onto a table and admits she just read his name off his entry permit. Since she runs the place, her gaze can reach literally anywhere inside the building. He asks how he should address her then as books magically slide off the shelves. The girl floats right up to his face and teases him for suddenly acting all polite after bossing her around for days. Our guy immediately denies it and tells her to back up as she casually levitates toward the ceiling. The little bookworm floats up into the air and drops a massive lore bomb. She is actually a spirit. Since her soul is tied to the library itself, her physical form is just a projection based on whatever the user prefers. Basically, she is just a reflection in the water. Our boy is a man of science, so he immediately tests this theory by shoving his entire hand straight through her stomach. Yep, definitely a ghost. The spirit gets super annoyed. She complains that she cannot physically interact with intruders. If she could, she would have absolutely folded every single person who ever mistreated her precious books. The silver-haired wizard realizes that the local nobles have zero clue she even exists. She confirms that he is literally the first person with the right stats to actually perceive her. She gets all up in his personal space and calls their little secret romantic. When he asks what kind of stats she means, she explains it all comes down to his magical bloodline. Since our guy is an orphan, he asks her to spill the tea on his family tree. The ghost girl gets a totally unhinged look on her face and says she can figure it out for him. She just needs his consent to thoroughly examine his body. Our boy immediately regrets asking as she wiggles her phantom fingers at him. The spirit girl decides to check his bloodline the old-fashioned way, which apparently means going full Mortal Kombat and shoving her hand straight through his chest. Our boy is understandably spooked, but she just giggles about them being connected now. He tells her to chill with the weird talk. She confirms he has the Zahar Hunter bloodline, but then her eye twitches. Turns out he is a hybrid. He has a second locked bloodline mixed in there. She tells him not to sweat it since it will unlock naturally once he levels up enough. This gets Tehran thinking about his late mom. She was way too polite and educated to just be some random mountain lady. He figures she must have been a noble with a diluted bloodline hiding out in the sticks. Having figured out his origins, he gives the spirit a polite bow of thanks. She tries to guilt-trip him into staying another month, but instead he just turns her into his personal Wikipedia, grilling her on every little detail in the books. She even shows him a neat trick. By shaping floating water into a lens, he can actually see invisible substances. Our boy looks through it and gets his mind blown by the microscopic world, basically discovering germ theory centuries early. Our boy realizes that understanding the basic principles of nature, like friction or how cells work, is the ultimate cheat code. He decides to test this out with a little experiment on decay. He taps a fresh apple, and boom, it instantly shrivels up into a sad, rotten husk. He explains to the spirit girl that knowing the science behind the magic lets you cast spells using way less mana. They figure the big noble houses are probably hoarding this knowledge to keep their competitive edge, which totally explains why the average wizard is basically a scrub these days. Having soaked up enough big brain energy, our guy decides it is time to dip. The spirit girl is shook, but he points out the library's owner is literally floating books around to hint that he has overstayed his welcome. Desperate, she dives at him, begging to tag along, only to faceplant hilariously on the stone floor. He asks if she can even leave this place. She admits she cannot and tries to guilt-trip him into staying, but he hits her with a hard pass, leaving her pouting like a total tsundere. The spirit girl tells our boy to keep his eyes peeled for other god legacies out there. She hints he might just stumble across another spirit who knows even more than she does. He heads out the door and promises to drop by from time to time. She hits him with the classic tsundere routine, telling him to come or not, but we all know she is going to miss him. He just gives a knowing smile. Stepping back out under the bright blue sky, our guy is fully packed and ready to hit the road. Checking his mental map, he notes that House Zahar's base is located in the Enroll Desert, just east of Orem. With a new destination locked in, he sets off towards Zahar. He is determined to finally dig up some solid clues about his parents and figure out his bloodline once and for all. Our boy hits the road with a fresh game plan. Thanks to that library map, he knows exactly where House Zahar is hiding out in the Enroll Desert just east of Orem. He is finally on track to dig up some family secrets. But he is not exactly speedrunning this quest. He figures if the clues have survived the last 18 years, a few extra days of camping and hiking past creepy animal skeletons will not hurt. Suddenly, a wild screech echoes through the trees. Our guy immediately drops into stealth mode and peeks through the bushes to check out the drama. He spots a saddled horse throwing an absolute fit while its rider is laid out cold in the dirt. The horse is squaring up against two sketchy dudes in dark cloaks. Our boy watches the standoff, trying to figure out if the horse is the victim or the aggressor here. Turns out the two creeps are dark elves, and they are already bickering about how to handle the angry stallion. The dark elves start cooking up some nasty necromancy. They summon these gross oozing shadow creatures right out of the dirt, and the poor horse is absolutely terrified. Our boy is chilling in the bushes playing spectator. He hesitates to jump in because for all he knows the guy on the ground started the fight. But then one of the elves just straight up takes a bite out of a severed human hand like it is a chicken wing. The other one asks for a bite and gets told to eat her own stash. Our boy smirks, realizing these guys are literal cannibals. That is all the green light he needs to crash the party. He launches a lightning-fast sneak attack that slashes right across the dude's face. Purple blood goes flying and the elf is absolutely livid. He commands his Shadow Zoo to gather up for a counterattack, but before they can even strike a pose, our boy just casually snipes the ram beast right in the dome with a rock. The purple cannibal is absolutely losing it. He screams for the attacker to show themselves just as a massive spike crashes down right where he was standing. He barely hops out of the way and realizes his ambusher is rocking a stealth build. Not wanting to play hide and seek, the elf summons a creepy shadow fox to sniff out our boy, but Tehran is just chilling behind a rock and smirking at this guy's desperate attempts to track him down. Deciding playtime is over, our shepherd drops his invisibility and winds up an attack. The dark elf immediately sends his Shadow Zoo charging right at him. But Tehran just preps his hand and unleashes a massive blast of fire magic straight into their path. The bull summon is surprisingly agile though. It dodges the flames and charges right at Tehran, forcing him to leap backward to avoid getting gored. He sticks the landing and admits these things are pretty fast, thanking his lucky stars he already took out the other elf before this fight really popped off. Our boy is sweating bullets as one of the shadow mutts sinks its teeth right into his leg. He grunts in pain and swiftly punts the overgrown furball away. But before he can even catch his breath, he locks eyes with the main problem. A massive horned shadow bull charges him like a freight train and absolutely launches him through the forest. Our guy crashes into the dirt, coughing up blood as the beasts close in for the kill. The cannibal elf starts laughing his purple off, thinking he has this in the bag. But out of nowhere, the wild horse pulls up and delivers a flawless hoof right to the back of his skull, trampling the absolute life out of him. The shadow summons immediately pivot to protect their master, viciously headbutting and biting the poor horse. The elf crawls through the dirt, spitting blood and swearing he is going to end them all. Yeah, good luck with that, buddy. A massive blue telekinetic beam drops from the sky and cleanly takes his head off his shoulders. Our boy unleashes a massive blue energy beam that cleanly decapitates the purple cannibal. With the summoner dead, his shadow beasts instantly dissolve into black smoke, leaving the brave horse to trot back to safety. The fight takes a serious toll on our shepherd. He coughs up a little blood and drops to his knees, panting heavily as he admits that little stunt took way too much out of him. The blonde guy's horse gently nudges him in gratitude. Our boy gives the loyal pet a well-deserved pat on the snout, thanking it for the assist during the brawl. Later that night under a full moon, the unconscious blonde kid finally snaps awake. He jolts up in a total panic, probably expecting to be dark elf dinner by now. Instead, he finds himself sitting by a cozy campfire across from our white-haired hero, who is just casually munching on some snacks. Our boy breaks the ice, letting the kid know he saw the dark elves jumping him and decided to step in and save his life. The loyal steed nudges her master awake. The blonde guy is thrilled to see his horse Tilly safe and sound. Our boy smiles and gives the horse some well-deserved props for protecting its owner when things went south. Settling down by a cozy campfire, our silver-haired hero asks the million-dollar question. Why exactly were those cannibal elves trying to turn him into a midnight snack? The blonde dude swears he did absolutely nothing wrong and was just minding his own business on a peaceful pilgrimage with his crew. Tears start streaming down his face as the trauma hits him. He wipes his eyes and explains that the elves slaughtered his entire escort. These were the knights and servants who practically raised him since he was in diapers. Seeing the guy completely broken over his staff makes our boy realize he is actually a genuinely good dude. Wanting to make sure they are actually safe for the night, our hero closes his eyes and casts a wide search spell. He scans the dark forest and confirms that the coast is totally clear. There are definitely no more creepy shadow elves lurking in the bushes waiting for round 2. Trying to relate to the grieving noble, our boy mentions that he is actually on a pilgrimage himself. The blonde guy is absolutely flabbergasted. He cannot fathom how someone with such insane magical power is just wandering around the woods completely solo. He immediately assumes our guy must be the secret heir to some massive noble house. Our boy plays it cool and claims he barely survived the fight even with the horse carrying the team. But then they both decide to casually flex their auras just to check each other's vibes. The kid erupts in a massive pillar of golden energy while our shepherd matches him with his signature blue flames. Tehran starts sweating bullets when he realizes this random blonde kid actually has an insane mana pool. He admits to himself that if he had not just slurped up those dark elves for a quick buff, he would actually be losing this measuring contest. He wonders why a guy with this much raw horsepower is wandering the woods completely alone. The kid breaks the tension and promises to properly repay his savior. He proudly thumps his chest and reveals his family are master enchanters serving under the great House Arabian. He promises to craft our guy the absolute finest magic tool on the market, which definitely catches the shepherd's attention. Out in the woods, our boy Tehran and the blonde noble are paying their respects at a makeshift grave for the fallen guards. Tehran wishes he could just send everyone back to their hometowns, but he knows that is a total pipe dream. The blonde kid actually thanks Tehran for not mocking him. He admits that crying over his dead subordinates feels pretty pathetic for a high-class noble. He says a true noble is supposed to just step over those sacrifices and keep moving forward. Tehran stares at the grave marker and remembers his dad teaching him that grieving is just a sign of weakness. But our boy realizes that if being an emotionless rock is what makes you strong, he is never going to make the cut. He flashes a warm smile and tells the kid that grieving is not weakness, it is just plain kindness. Since they are stuck traveling together and are basically the same age, the blonde guy suggests they drop the formalities. He flashes a massive grin and extends his hand, asking to be actual friends. Tehran is a little caught off guard by the sudden wholesome vibe, but he locks it in and shakes on it. With the trauma bonding out of the way, the blonde noble asks if they should take a quick breather. He points to a random metal box on the ground. Tehran is confused until the kid pops the lid, revealing a literal magic mini-fridge fully stocked with fresh meat, bread, and drinks. The blonde noble decides it is time for a quick flex and pops open his magical mini-fridge. He shows off a magic teapot that dispenses water on command. Then he points out a portable shelter generator and a proximity alarm. But the real kicker is his self-cleaning shirt. No laundry day for this guy. Our boy is genuinely impressed. He admits that the laundry-dodging shirt alone was worth saving the guy's life. The blonde noble laughs that off. He claims his life is worth way more than some camping gear and promises a massive reward once they reach his main house. He even swears to craft the gear himself if his family refuses. But then the noble gets serious. He lists off the insane variety of magic he has seen our boy use. From animal control to freezing and liquid manipulation, he asks if our guy has some kind of overpowered bloodline ability that lets him master any spell. Our shepherd just stares blankly. He internally admits he just does it because he can. No special bloodline required. The noble quickly drops the subject and agrees not to pry into his family history. But he does have one more question. He asks how old our boy actually is. He guesses the kid must be an 80-year-old master trapped in a young body. Our guy casually drops the bomb that he is turning 18 next month. The noble's brain completely short-circuits at the thought of a teenager being this ridiculously overpowered. The blonde guy drops a total bombshell. He is actually 43 years old. Our boy is stunned, but the blonde dude brushes it off, saying age gaps do not matter much to wizards anyway. He admits he never expected to meet a monster who could solo 2 wraith sorcerers, but mentions he actually knows another genius right around our boy's age. His own cousin. Our boy immediately asks if this cousin can hook him up with some custom magic tools, but the blonde guy shoots that down fast. She is from the main house. A glowing silhouette of this mysterious powerhouse appears as the blonde dude confirms she is basically royalty. As they keep trekking through the woods, the blonde guy drops some lore. He explains that massive wizard families do not just hand the keys to the kingdom over to their kids. There is way too much competition for that. But this cousin named Mesa is built different. She was born with absolutely cracked talent and left everyone else in the dust. Our boy connects the dots and asks if her insane power spike came from a family funeral. The blonde guy nods, confirming that when their granduncle kicked the bucket, Mesa basically vacuumed up the lion's share of his leftover magic, though the rest of the family got some table scraps too. Our boy realizes the great houses are absolutely ruthless when it comes to hoarding power. Just as he is processing this magical nepotism, the blonde guy points ahead and announces they have finally reached their destination. Our boy and his new blonde buddy finally make it out of the woods and hit the sunlit Dakane Plains. They roll up to the massive castle of House Berg. Immediately, this lady comes sprinting out to hug her precious child. Our guy is just standing there sweating bullets because he just found out this blonde dude is 43 years old. A bearded guy steps in to tell the overgrown man-child to act his age. The blonde guy quickly introduces our boy as the absolute unit who saved his life. When he mentions they got jumped by dark elves, the mom instantly goes feral. She is ready to pull up with an entire army to shred them, but the bearded guy has to remind her they have an audience. He then turns his attention to our boy and asks which noble house he belongs to. Our guy just hits him with the classic mysterious protagonist line and says he cannot say. The blonde noble is absolutely shook that our boy is just some commoner with no dad. Tehran brushes it off like it is no big deal. The head of House Berg steps up, promising a fat reward for saving her precious boy. But she immediately hits him with the classic excuse. She claims they have a super important VIP guest staying over, so letting a random stranger crash at the estate is a massive no-go. Suddenly, a mysterious voice chimes in with a smirk. The voice jokes that whoever saved the blonde kid probably is not plotting a sudden assassination. Out steps a tall, dark-haired woman rocking a gothic black dress and stepping right out of the shadows. The blonde kid is totally confused why she is even out of her room. Tehran instantly recognizes her as the Princess of Arabian, though right now she is giving off major corpse energy with those dead fish eyes and pale skin. Tehran is sweating bullets just looking at her. The blonde kid is mind-blown that someone actually tried to assassinate her at the heavily fortified main house. The princess casually confirms it was probably an inside job since her family tree is packed with sketchy haters. Dropping that heavy lore like it is nothing, she just yawns, says she is tired, and dips for the night. She leaves the whole squad standing there in the grand hall in complete awkward silence. The head of the house finally relents and orders a maid to show our boy to the second-best guest room. Night passes and morning arrives with our shepherd waking up in a bed that probably costs more than his entire village. He wanders the halls and spots a fancy glowing lantern on the wall. The blonde noble catches him staring and casually offers him one from storage since they have tons lying around. Suddenly, a massive crack of golden lightning flashes outside. The blonde guy explains that his cousin is just doing her morning magic practice. He admits he is a little jealous of her literal god-tier storm bloodline. Our boy watches the light show and admits he is pretty curious to see just how strong the future leader of the Arabian house really is. The blonde noble asks our boy if he wants to go check out the princess practicing her magic. Tehran immediately calls him out, knowing this was the guy's real agenda all along. The noble drops the innocent act and admits he has been holding a petty grudge for years. He just wants to see the perfect princess take a massive L for once. They walk up on her courtyard training session and the blonde guy calls out to her. She turns around looking like she would rather be literally anywhere else and asks who the new guy is. Tehran introduces himself and she actually remembers his name, demanding to know why they are interrupting her. The blonde noble tries to play it cool, suggesting they do a little group magic practice just like the good old days. The princess instantly violates him. She reminds him that the last time they practiced together, he literally stormed out crying because she mastered a spell in 2 tries that took him a whole week. Tehran tries to hold back a laugh and apologizes while the noble glares daggers at him. Feeling completely exposed, the blonde guy pivots and decides to use our boy as his champion. He hypes Tehran up, claiming his magic talent is absolutely unmatched, and straight up proposes a duel between the two prodigies. The princess just stares down at them with absolute zero chill, and Tehran realizes he just got drafted into a petty family feud. The princess doesn't even need to lift a finger. Her eye flashes with a blinding blue light, and our boy instantly feels the crushing weight of her mana bearing down on him. A massive, terrifying storm of golden lightning erupts around her. She manifests this colossal hooded avatar with glowing eyes that looks straight out of a final boss fight. Tehran is completely paralyzed. The sheer scale of her power sends a literal shockwave of panic right through his system and his eyes widen in absolute terror. But just as fast as it started, the storm vanishes. The sky clears up into a perfect sunny day, leaving our shepherd standing in the courtyard like he just woke up from a nightmare. He is dripping with cold sweat and gasping for air. The dude is completely shaken to his core, realizing he just got mentally folded without her even casting a single spell. The princess just stares at him with zero emotion and flat out says she hates to admit it, but he is nowhere near her level. Tehran can only grit his teeth, looking completely humbled and frustrated by the massive gap in their strength. The princess starts talking down to our boy, basically saying he is not on her level. Tehran is visibly annoyed, but before he can clap back, the blonde noble steps in to play peacemaker. He admits Tehran might lack raw mana, but hypes him up as a once-in-a-generation magic genius. He even tells the princess that her talent does not hold a candle to his. She takes the bait and challenges our boy to a little magic showdown to see what he is really made of. Tehran just hits her with a confident smirk, and the blonde guy is all for it. The princess agrees but decides to handicap herself. Since Tehran does not even know his own bloodline magic, she promises not to use hers to keep things fair. She taps her foot on the stone floor, and as the guys watch, a tiny glowing sprout pushes its way through the solid rock. But it does not stay tiny for long. Massive thorny vines violently erupt from the ground in every direction. The blonde noble gets caught lacking and is instantly snatched up by the glowing yellow roots. He gets hoisted into the air and dangled upside down like a piñata while the princess just stares at him with absolute zero chill. The blonde noble is left hanging upside down like a human piñata while the red-haired princess watches with a cold stare. Our boy just looks up at the mess before taking a knee and touching the stone floor. He drops some quick magic theory on them. Spells that ignite fire or summon water are just manipulating the environment, and those fancy vines are exactly the same. It is not creation magic. It is just rapidly accelerating the growth of seeds already buried in the dirt. Channeling his blue mana into the ground, he instantly sprouts his own set of vines right out of the solid stone. The princess and the upside-down noble can only stare in absolute shock. She is seriously impressed that he figured out the core nature of her spell instantly. Dropping the blonde kid flat on his back, she tells our shepherd that it is finally his turn to show off. Our boy hesitates for a second. He knows using his actual Zahar bloodline magic right now would basically be a death sentence. Focusing his gaze, he reaches a hand out toward a nearby bush to grab some fresh material. Our boy decides to get a little creative for his turn. He spots a rat scurrying through the grass and snatches it right up. The princess watches closely to see what kind of parlor trick he has up his sleeve. His eye flares with that signature blue mana. He channels his energy straight into the little guy and completely drains its life force in seconds. The rat turns into a shriveled up mummy before it even knows what hit it. The princess narrows her eyes at the display. Tehran casually dangles the crispy critter in front of her like a twisted trophy. She steps up to the plate and declares that playtime is over. With a simple flick of her finger, she commands the shriveled husk. The rat suddenly reanimates and hits the ground running. It leaps into the air and projects a massive monstrous shadow like it just hit a crazy growth spurt. But as she grips the squeaking rodent and pumps her golden magic into it, things start going south. The princess breaks out in a cold sweat. She realizes our boy did not just cast a simple spell, and whatever he did to this rat is completely defying the laws of magic. The blonde noble is totally creeped out by our boy's casual display of dark magic. Tehran just shrugs it off, flexing that the spell literally just popped into his head. He even throws a little shade, asking if the prestigious Arabian family is really this out of the loop. Seeing the princess struggle, the blonde guy tries to throw in the towel for her and declare Tehran the winner. But the princess is way too stubborn to take an L. She grips the squeaking rat, her body flaring up with a massive golden aura. She is sweating bullets trying to force the spell to work. You see, magic causality is a tricky beast. If you do not fully understand the phenomenon you are trying to create, you have to brute force it by dumping an ungodly amount of mana into the target. She grits her teeth, pushing herself to the absolute limit. Her eyes lock onto the rodent with pure malice as she commands the thing to rot alive. The rat lets out a horrifying screech as the sheer volume of her mana violently forces its body to decay, shrinking it down into a shriveled husk. The blonde noble cheers, thinking she actually pulled it off. But our boy immediately senses something is wrong. The princess stands there panting, holding the dead rat by its tail like a cursed trophy. Her eyes roll into the back of her head, and she completely ragdolls onto the stone floor. The blonde noble is absolutely losing his mind as the dark-haired princess hits the deck. Our boy tries to diagnose the issue. Sure, she burned through her mana pool, but that usually just leaves a mage winded, not completely comatose. He takes one look at her pale face and connects the dots. He scoops her up like a sack of potatoes and barks at the blonde kid to fetch water and salt. As he carries her, he realizes she weighs practically nothing. This girl has been running on fumes, using magic to puppet a body that is basically falling apart, and now the tank is completely empty. Back inside the grand estate, the princess finally blinks awake. The head of the house is hovering over her bed, sweating bullets and demanding to know what happened during their little magic sparring session. The princess just stares blankly, looking like she just woke up from a 3-day bender. A servant chimes in, asking if our silver-haired boy did this to her, casually dropping the bomb that they already locked him up in the temple just in case. The princess clutches her head, groaning that it was entirely her own stupid mistake. The servant tries to pivot, offering her a bowl of soup and begging her to eat something despite her magic ruining her appetite, before letting out a heavy sigh. Left alone in her room, the dark-haired princess is still reeling from her magic burnout. She has absolutely zero appetite, but she forces herself to pick up the bowl and take a tiny sip of the soup the maid left behind. But the second the broth hits her tongue, she is slammed with a horrifying vision of bloody, screaming corpses begging for her help. She gags and drops the bowl, shattering it across the floor as she clutches her head in absolute agony. Meanwhile, deep beneath the estate in the Temple of the Limping Goddess, our boy is getting a very different kind of hospitality. A burly bearded guy named Haramberg draws his sword and flexes that the walls and doors down here are completely solid, meaning escaping is literally impossible. Our boy calmly agrees to stay put since he wasn't planning a prison break anyway. But this bearded guard gets weirdly intense about the room's structural integrity. He leans in way too close to brag about how extremely firm the walls are. Our guy just sweats a little and wonders if this dude is seriously flexing his masonry right now. Suddenly the guard drops into a stance and starts swinging his sword around like he is fighting invisible demons. Our boy is completely lost and asks what on earth he is doing. But the guy just keeps going and unleashes a rapid series of heavy slashes right there in the middle of the room. Despite the random flex, our boy actually pays attention. He notices the guy's movements are crazy efficient with zero wasted energy. Every single motion perfectly sets up the next strike. It is the absolute peak of a physically trained body. The guard finally stops his shadowboxing routine and turns around. Our boy awkwardly apologizes and asks if he was interrupting the workout. Instead of answering, the guard instantly gets right back into his personal space. He intensely demands to know exactly what our boy just saw in his swordplay. After our guy casually breaks down the flawless efficiency of his technique, the guard just pulls back with a satisfied smirk and says he understands. Our boy drops some hard truths. He points out that most nobles just spam magic from a distance because they have weak bodies. Unless your bloodline specifically buffs your physical strength, hiding behind spells is just way more practical. But as he remembers his own close calls with giant mutant beasts, he knows real combat does not always let you play keep away. The bearded knight just smirks and flips his sword around, offering the hilt right to our silver-haired wizard. The kid is a little confused. He asks if it is really a smart idea to hand a deadly weapon to the highly suspicious guy they locked in the basement, but the knight just brushes it off. To him, that sword is basically just a heavy iron bar in the hands of a scrawny teenager. The wizard grabs the hilt, totally agreeing with the guy's assessment. Sure, with his normal physical strength, he could not even leave a scratch on this veteran. The knight watches closely, waiting to see what the kid will do. And that is exactly when our boy decides to stop playing nice, instantly erupting in a massive wave of blinding blue mana. The scarred instructor hands our boy a basic iron sword. He tells him it is just a metal stick and his weak body is what actually makes it a weapon. Tehran agrees that even if he tried to pull a fast one, he wouldn't stand a chance against the veteran. But old habits die hard. Tehran instantly flares up his massive blue aura, causing the instructor to scream in absolute panic. He barks at the kid to stop pouring his overpowered magic into the training gear before he blows the place up. Getting hands-on, the veteran physically adjusts the shepherd's sloppy stance. He roasts Tehran for having weak elbows that will just get his own thighs pierced. He orders him to raise his arms and stop setting his own limits. Tehran submissively agrees and starts swinging for 10 grueling reps while remembering to breathe straight into his muscles. The instructor watches with a proud smirk. He realizes the kid has an absolute god-tier physical vessel just waiting to be wrung dry. He knows most wizards get cocky and rely entirely on their parlor trick magic, completely neglecting their actual bodies. But a properly trained warrior does not even need mana to throw hands. Tehran takes the harsh lesson to heart, huffing through the pain. Suddenly, the grand doors swing open. The dark-haired storm princess steps into the hall and drops a deep, respectful bow. She is here to formally apologize for completely losing her mind and attacking their guest the other day. Later on, the dark-haired princess tracks our boy down to properly apologize for nearly nuking him during their little duel. Tehran brushes it off, saying he was out of line too, and is just glad she survived her own mana overdose. But Mesa is still hung up on the magic he used to rot that rat. She accuses him of using some secret bloodline hack since the mana cost was absolutely absurd. Tehran tells her anyone can do it if they understand the basic principles, but he is not running a free charity. She tries to call his bluff, saying he has no proof it is not bloodline magic, but our guy literally could not care less about winning their little bet. This totally bruises her ego since she refuses to take an L like this. Tehran agrees to a trade and drops some basic biology on her, explaining how he used microscopic organisms to speed up the decay. Mesa holds up the shriveled rat and instantly realizes why her own spell was so horribly inefficient. She basically brute forced the whole thing with raw mana instead of actual technique. Tehran tries to give her the win anyway, but she has too much pride for that. She begs him to tell the blonde noble it was a draw just so she does not have to deal with his cocky attitude. Refusing to be in debt, she marches over to a drawer to find some proper compensation to trade for his science lesson. Mesa wants to pay our boy back for the magic lesson. She grabs a comb and starts brushing her hair vigorously. She holds it up to show off how her hair magically floats toward the plastic, totally convinced she is dropping some profound secret art on him. But Tehran just deadpans that it is static electricity. Mesa is absolutely flabbergasted. Her grand mystical secret is just basic middle school science to him, and she is visibly annoyed that he completely ruined her flex. Since her party trick failed, she pivots. She demands they train together from now on so she can properly repay her debt. Tehran just smiles and agrees to meet her in the garden tomorrow evening. Later that night, Tehran sits down for dinner with the Berg family, and calling it a dinner is an understatement. It is an absolute feast fit for a king. The matriarch of the house tells them to eat up, claiming it is nothing special. Even the blonde noble is completely shell-shocked by the spread, realizing he has never seen food this good even on his birthday. Tehran starts sweating, knowing full well this is a trap. There is no way this is just a casual meal. Right on cue, the matriarch locks eyes with him and steers the conversation back to business. At a feast fit for a king, the matriarch asks our boy exactly what kind of magic tool he wants as his reward. Tehran keeps it practical. He points out that blowing stuff up is easy, but not dying to a sneak attack is the real challenge. When asked about the specifics, Tehran requests a defensive item he can carry around 24/7. The blonde noble steps up to the plate, explaining he can embed a guardian bloodline's defensive power straight into some jewelry. His mom immediately starts hyping him up, asking for a time frame while casually flexing that her son is already a top-tier wizard. Tehran thinks dedicating a whole month to craft one item is a bit overkill, but the matriarch hits him with the ultimate guilt trip. She asks if her son's life is really worth that little. Checkmate. Our boy literally cannot argue with that logic and just accepts his fate as their VIP guest. Later on, the two take a stroll through the bustling town. The blonde noble points out that his mom has totally taken a liking to Tehran since his magic talent is off the charts. Tehran immediately clocks the vibe, realizing this whole VIP treatment is just a giant trap to recruit him into their family. The noble laughs and confirms the strategy. He explains his mom loves to shower people with gifts, trap them in massive debt, and then toss a pretty girl their way to seal the deal. Tehran just waves off the honeypot tactics. When asked about his plans for the rest of the day, our boy admits he is already booked for an evening training session with the Storm Princess. The blonde noble decides there is way too much daylight left to just sit around. He drags our silver-haired boy out by the neck, completely ignoring his protests about wanting to stay inside and grind his magic stats. The extrovert energy is lethal, but Asses insists life is way too short to be a total shut-in. He drags him on a grand tour of the town's finest degenerate establishments. First up is the casino, but our boy hits him with a hard pass. Next is the local tavern, which gets another firm head shake. Even the bustling market stalls cannot crack his introverted shell. But as he turns away from the stalls, something catches his eye. He wanders over to a wall plastered with bounty posters and freezes. Staring right back at him is a sketch of a very familiar bearded face. He squints at the name, completely shook. It is Kiorn. He flashes back to the scarred old wizard who basically acted as his dad for a week, wondering if his mentor is actually a wanted criminal. To make things even weirder, they end up at a local theater watching a literal stage play about the guy. The actors dramatically reenact a legendary battle from decades ago, hyping up a heroic knight named Kiorn who supposedly conquered the demon desert. Assis is absolutely eating it up in the front row, while our boy just claps politely, trying to process the fact that his humble old teacher is apparently a historical celebrity. The blonde noble asks our boy how he liked the play. Tehran just smiles, thinking back to the scarred old wizard who taught him magic. The guy was a total legend but acted like a regular dude. Tehran makes a mental note to ask the old man if the crazy stories are actually true the next time they cross paths. The next morning, Tehran wakes up to a literal jump scare. The massive bearded trainer is just squatting next to his bed, staring into his soul. The guy asks if our boy rested well before casually mentioning that his physical vessel is looking pretty solid. Tehran rubs the sleep out of his eyes, completely clueless about the absolute hell he is about to endure. The giant stands up and basically challenges him to a workout. Tehran figures he might as well get some gains instead of just sitting around playing wizard all day, so he agrees to tag along. Right on cue, the blonde noble bursts through the door, hyping up some new performance he wants to check out. But the second he spots his giant uncle standing there, his soul leaves his body. He immediately hits reverse and sprints down the hallway like he just saw a ghost. Tehran just blinks in confusion, wondering why his buddy is acting so weird. Then the gears finally click in his head. The cold sweat drops hit as he realizes he just agreed to a one-way ticket to Snap City. Flashback to our boy getting absolutely destroyed in the gym. The scarred uncle has him doing push-ups with a literal manhole cover on his back. Tehran is shaking like a leaf on a windy day. The big guy finally calls it, and Tehran hits the deck, gasping for air like he just ran a marathon in a sauna. The uncle asks if he is tired, which is the understatement of the century. But then he drops a massive lore bomb. Since Tehran is a wizard, he only has to do this hellish workout once. His mana will basically lock his gains in place forever. Regular dudes have to keep grinding to maintain their physique, but our boy gets the permanent buff. Talk about a cheat code. Tehran is relieved, but then the uncle hits him with the most sinister smile you have ever seen. Tehran tries to pull the I am still recovering card, but the big guy is not having it. He knows Tehran's body is fully rested and ready for round 2. Welcome to the gravity chamber. The uncle drags Tehran into a gym filled with massive weights and immediately starts swinging a sword at his head. Tehran is fighting for his life, realizing that the one-time workout was just the warm-up. When evening rolls around, our boy switches gears to magic training with the Storm Princess. He tries to channel his inner gunslinger by snapping off a bolt of lightning, but his aim is completely cooked. The blast completely misses the bullseye and shatters the wood, leaving him staring at his smoking finger like a total noob. The princess crosses her arms and roasts him for struggling so hard. Our guy just smiles and blames it on not having that Arabian bloodline privilege. She is about to reply when someone rudely interrupts their little study date. A random messenger jogs up and immediately starts questioning who the silver-haired kid is. The princess instantly shuts him down with a death glare. The guy takes the hint and drops the real reason he is here. The patriarch has officially summoned her. It turns out things are getting incredibly spicy down south. A massive horde of dark elves is rampaging through the territory, and 3 entire cities have already fallen to the mob. They are assembling an expedition force to wipe them out, and our boy realizes his vacation is officially over. The messenger drops a massive bombshell. The dark elves are throwing a massive tantrum down south, wiping 3 whole cities off the map and forcing an expedition force to assemble. Our boy and the Storm Princess are absolutely shook as the terrifying horde of glowing-eyed freaks is revealed. Tehran tells the messenger to hold his horses and that he will be back soon. The princess lets out a heavy sigh and decides she better go check out the chaos herself. But before she dips, she remembers she owes our boy for that creepy corruption magic lesson. Clapping her hands together, she hits him with a pop quiz, asking if he knows that electricity flows through the human body. Turan just stares at her like she grew a second head. Smirking at his clueless face, she flexes that this is a top-tier Arabian secret teaching. She taps her temple and drops some basic biology on him, explaining how the brain uses electrical signals to process sensations and command the body to move. Turan soaks it all in, realizing this perfectly lines up with the crazy science books he was speed reading back at the Sky Library. The dark-haired princess asks our boy what happens if he accelerates that internal electricity with magic. He correctly guesses that perception and reaction speeds increase. She praises his big brain and decides to give him a live demonstration. Our guy closes his eyes and visualizes the tiny electrical currents flowing through his entire nervous system. He pumps his mana into those pathways, supercharging the signals to move even faster. His eyes snap open, crackling with raw lightning. Suddenly, the whole world grinds to a halt. He watches in awe as a blue butterfly flutters in extreme slow motion, gently landing right on the princess's face. He smiles, completely mind-blown by this new slowed-down perception. But then a massive shock jolts his brain, leaving him stumbling and clutching his head. The princess smirks, noting that he successfully pulled off the technique, but warns him that recklessly dumping huge amounts of mana into his brain is a one-way ticket to a killer migraine. The princess decides her debt is settled and blasts off into the sky like a rocket. She warns our boy that if he learns any more high-tier magic, she will be back to collect. He just watches her fly away completely starstruck. A hawk screeches through the clouds. Down below in Morgan City, a massive army of cloaked figures stands in tight formation ready to march. The townspeople are absolutely losing their minds cheering for the troops. It looks less like a serious military deployment against the Dark Elves and more like a victory parade. The blonde noble boy is right in the thick of it, waving like a massive fanboy. He spots the princess riding past on horseback and screams her name, but she completely ignores him. His dad immediately grabs his arm and tells him to act like a proper noble instead of a screaming groupie. Our boy and the blonde noble are chilling in the crowd when the main event kicks off. Heavy footsteps announce the arrival of the big boss himself. But as the head of House Arabian steps up, he looks like he just crawled out of a grave. Dude is pale as a ghost and looks like he has not slept since the last century. Our silver-haired MC leans in and points out that the guy looks like he is on his last legs. The blonde kid whispers back that rumor has it he took some massive damage fighting the head of House Sahar back in the day. But sick or not, the old man still has the juice. He raises a single hand to the sky and the entire crowd goes dead silent. The weather instantly shifts as pitch-black clouds roll in over the city. With his eyes glowing a piercing blue, he tells the people to witness the true strength of Arabian. Massive golden lightning violently rips through the sky, lighting up the entire town. The crowd absolutely loses their minds, chanting for their eternal house while getting a front-row seat to a literal god-tier flex. Golden lightning absolutely nukes the sky above the estate. Turan watches the insane display of power from the Arabian head, but he is not intimidated in the slightest. Our boy just stares up at the storm and casually decides he is going to reach that exact same level of overpowered goodness someday. Back inside, the blonde enchanter finally hands over the custom loot. It is a braided bracelet with a glowing blue core that buffs physical durability. Channeling mana into it cranks those stats up to guardian noble levels, but it chugs mana like crazy, so he cannot just leave it on all day. Turan is hyped, knowing this tier of gear is stupidly rare even for the top percent. The head honcho mom shoots her shot and asks if he wants to formally join their house. Turan hits her with the polite rejection, claiming it would be way too difficult. She already knew he was a wanderer who could not be tied down, so she takes the rejection gracefully and wraps up the chat. With his new gear secured and his goodbyes handled, our guy steps out into the hallway, immediately catching sight of someone waiting for him. Our boy steps out into the alley and hands the bearded swordsman a parting gift. It is a simple magic dagger, nothing too flashy, just incredibly durable and sharp. The big guy is absolutely touched by the gesture, flashing a massive grin before heading out. Next up is the blonde noble, who tosses a dark cloak over our shepherd's shoulders. He remembers Turan eyeing his drip earlier and hands over a fresh set of clothes, bragging that they repel dirt and even repair their own minor tears. Turan smiles, appreciating the upgrade. The blonde guy beams, admitting that hanging out with our overpowered protagonist has given him a lot to think about, way beyond just saving his life. When asked about his next destination, Turan casually mentions he is heading east. The noble immediately warns him against taking a ship to Carmine, complaining about the absolutely brutal waves. Turan just smiles to himself, knowing full well that beyond those waves lies the Enroll Desert, the home of House Sahar, but he decides to keep that little detail to himself. With his new drip secured, our boy bids farewell to the Berg estate and hits the dusty trail. He is flying solo once again, and honestly, he is thriving. But walking is for absolute peasants. Turan decides to test out his new lightning-enhanced reflexes and absolutely books it. He leaves the local farmers completely flabbergasted as he casually breaks the sound barrier across the plains. He hits the brakes and skids to a halt when something interrupts his little track meet. Strolling into a creepy forest path at the base of a mountain, he takes a whiff of the air. At first, he thinks someone is just having a cozy little campfire, but the scent quickly turns foul. His eyes widen as he realizes that it's definitely not barbecue he is smelling. Our boy arrives at a ruined settlement and immediately catches the repulsive scent of burning flesh. He finds a bunch of charred bodies tied to wooden stakes and wonders if a bandit crew rolled through here. He knows the Dark Elves shouldn't have pushed this far north. He steps into a wrecked building and spots a hidden trapdoor on the floor. Knowing someone is hiding down there, he grabs the heavy wooden handles and yanks the hatch wide open. Peering into the dark basement, he finds a young girl crying her eyes out in absolute terror. He heads down the stairs with his hands raised, telling her to chill out because he is not an enemy and just wants to help. The little girl looks up with teary eyes and asks if he is really there to help. Our silver-haired boy gently asks her what went down. She stammers out that everyone is dead and mentions a rogue wizard before her lights completely go out. She faceplants right onto the stone floor. Our guy scoops her up and realizes she is just exhausted from being locked in the dark for who knows how long. He decides to get her to safety and carries her up the stairs. But the second he pokes his head out of the hatch, a glowing blue ice arrow is pointed right at his face. He looks up to find a whole squad of armed strangers waiting for him in the ruins. A blonde archer with a serious attitude problem draws back her frosty bow and orders him to drop to his knees, but our boy just stands there holding the sleeping kid. He looks completely unbothered by this makeshift firing squad. But before our boy can even process the rescue, a blonde archer pulls up with a glowing ice arrow aimed right at his dome. She screams at him to freeze and calls him a straight-up murderer. She accuses him of trying to kidnap the kid after tying up the corpses. Meanwhile, her nervous buddy Gil starts charging up a fiery spear and warns our guy not to twitch. Tehran calmly tries to explain that this is all a massive misunderstanding, but Gil has the worst trigger discipline ever and accidentally unleashes his fire magic. A massive explosion completely engulfs our silver-haired shepherd. The archer absolutely loses it on Gil and screams that there was a literal child in the blast zone. Gil stammers out a pathetic apology, but the archer suddenly gasps. Through the smoke, Tehran steps out completely unfazed, holding the sleeping girl safe behind a glowing blue barrier. He glances down at his new defensive bracelet and thinks he did not expect to test drive the Berg family gift this quickly. The ambush squad is left completely dumbfounded. They stare at his spotless clothes and wonder if this absolute unit just tanked a point-blank explosion with his bare body. The blonde archer is absolutely flabbergasted. She demands to know what kind of broken bloodline ability our boy just used to tank a point-blank explosion. But Tehran is just chilling. He calmly repeats that he did not attack this village and that this whole standoff is a massive misunderstanding. I mean, look at him. He is literally holding a sleeping toddler. Does he look like a mass murderer to you? Tehran drops some basic logic on the squad. Why would he nuke an entire settlement just to spare one random kid and then hang around the crime scene? The archer is still skeptical, though. She asks how she is supposed to trust him when he is standing right in the middle of the ashes. Tehran just shrugs and tells her to ask the kid herself once she wakes up. She is the only eyewitness after all. This completely throws the archer off guard. She asks if the kid actually saw the burner. Tehran is clueless and asks what a burner is. The archer is stunned that he has not heard the news. She explains that for the past few months, some absolute psycho has been going around attacking remote villages. This guy literally ties people up and roasts them alive. And because he never leaves any survivors behind, nobody even knows what he looks like. He is just a terrifying fiery silhouette haunting the countryside. The rescued kid finally drops the real description of the culprit. Turns out the guy is rocking a red cloak and a lumberjack beard. Our boy Tehran just stands there looking smug while the blonde archer sweats bullets, realizing she just tried to ice a completely innocent dude. The whole squad immediately hits the deck in a deep apology bow. Tehran gets a quick flashback to his old hunter buddy doing the exact same thing and realizes these eager nobles are all cut from the same cloth. He lets them off the hook since they were just trying to protect the kid anyway. The blonde explains they just assumed he was the arsonist since he was chilling right next to a freshly burned village. But now that they have a solid physical description, they are ready to track the real guy down using their resident bloodhound. Hearing about tracking magic, Tehran immediately asks if they are from House Zahar. The archer panics and clarifies she is Bizin Carmine and her squad just has a weak primordial bloodline. It makes them great at sniffing out targets but absolutely terrible at hiding. Bizin then shoots her shot and begs Tehran to help them hunt down this rogue fire mage. She even offers to give up her entire cut of the bounty since she only cares about the clout. Tehran asks for the target's stats and Bizin confirms the burner is a full-blown noble-level wizard. Hearing that this rogue wizard has been casually wiping out entire squads of knights, our boy realizes this is exactly the kind of smoke he needs. Grinding low-level mobs in the wild just isn't cutting it for his XP bar anymore. The blonde archer is thrilled to have a powerhouse on the squad. But before they go hunting, our guy makes a quick pit stop at a nearby village. He hands a local farmer a massive bag of cash to raise the orphaned girl, promising to check back in a few years. The sheer weight of that bag has the poor farmer absolutely flabbergasted. With the babysitting side quest complete, the crew heads straight to the latest village that got turned into a barbecue. The short-haired tracker girl closes her eyes and locks in, activating her glowing blue tracking magic. Our boy suggests they canvass the area a bit more, but the tracker is already on the scent. She points them down a path, leading the squad past broken trees and sandy footprints. She takes a deep sniff of the air, locking onto the lingering smell of ash like a bloodhound. The short-haired tracker gets right to work sniffing out the real culprit. She notes that if the guy had not changed his clothes, he would be covered in ash. Our boy is honestly pretty impressed by her professionalism. He realizes she only struggled to track him earlier because she did not even know his gender. Suddenly her eyes go wide. She locks onto the scent and bolts forward like a bloodhound on a fresh steak. The blonde archer yells at her to slow down, but the trail leads them straight to a massive rocky mountain. They spot a super sketchy cave entrance carved right into the base. The archer takes charge of the raid. She tells our boy to stick with her at the front of the pack while the rest of the squad covers the rear. She casually pops a glowing orb of light into her hand and leads the strike team straight into the pitch-black abyss. As they creep deeper into the shadows, the archer whispers back to her tracker asking if anyone is actually home. The girl starts sweating bullets and confirms there is definitely one person waiting for them in the dark. The squad pushes forward with their weapons ready. The archer locks in as the cave walls suddenly light up with burning torches. The squad finally reaches the end of the cave and finds a creepy hooded dude waiting for them. He tries to play dumb and asks what brings them to his cozy little murder den. But the tracker girl takes one sniff and confirms this is definitely the burner they have been looking for. The blonde archer draws her glowing ice bow and asks if he is the psycho who has been roasting innocent villagers alive. The guy claims he has no idea what she is talking about before immediately thrusting his hand forward and unleashing a massive point-blank fire blast right in their faces. The explosion sends the rest of the group flying back in a panic, but our boy just casually raises his hand. His new magic bracelet glows and he projects a massive blue energy barrier that completely tanks the flames without a single scratch. The burner is absolutely flabbergasted that his sneak attack did 0 damage. Taking advantage of the opening, the blonde archer instantly fires her ice arrow straight through the fading flames. It nails the crazy wizard right in the chest. He collapses to the ground in shock, realizing he just messed with the wrong crew. But the crazy cultist isn't done yet. He slams his bloody hand into the dirt and summons massive stone hands to crush them. Our boy is completely thrown off. He thought this guy was strictly a fire user, so where is this earth magic coming from? The blonde archer screams as the cave collapses around them, but our shepherd wizard easily parkours through the falling rubble. He lands perfectly on his feet just as the hooded freak reaches out for round 2. Big mistake. Tehran instantly fires off a concentrated beam of blue mana and cleanly severs the guy's entire arm. The cultist screams in absolute agony as his stump turns into a literal fountain. But Tehran isn't about to let up. He channels a massive surge of lightning through his fingertips and blasts the murderer with a high-voltage shock therapy session. The guy's eyes practically pop out of his skull as he gets deep fried. With the rest of the squad pinned under the heavy rubble, the blonde archer limps over to check on the situation. She stammers out a question asking if the monster is finally defeated. Tehran casually confirms the W and tells her to go help her friends while he secures their new prisoner. Our boy isn't taking any chances. He drops a few magic seeds that instantly sprout into glowing blue vines, wrapping this crispy psycho up like a cursed burrito. With his limbs completely sealed, Tehran gives him a little wake-up tap with his blade. The guy actually smiles, but Tehran shuts that down real quick. He presses the steel right to his throat and promises an instant game over if he even thinks about using mana. The whole squad gathers around for the interrogation. When the burner just gives him a smug little grin instead of answering, Tehran doesn't hesitate to plunge the knife straight into his thigh. He demands to know why this wandering noble is out here turning innocent villagers into barbecue, reminding him that murderers do not get mercy. The rest of the crew watches in absolute shock as the bleeding psycho finally starts talking. But his excuse is straight out of the loony bin. He screams that God taught him a secret cheat code to unlock bloodline powers. Apparently, if he just roasts a few more humans, he thinks he will magically inherit the pyromaniac bloodline. The blonde archer calls the captive completely unhinged for thinking he can just murder his way into a magical bloodline. But our boy just smiles. He is finally putting the pieces together. He remembers those hunters mentioning how ordinary people can gain power by killing monsters. The crazy guy keeps muttering about needing just a few more crispy victims to unlock his pyromaniac powers. And our boy realizes this is not just some deranged rambling. He clenches his fist. He has just stumbled onto the biggest and darkest secret of this entire world. And that wraps up this chapter of the Shepherd Wizard. The rogue wizard gets his throat completely sliced open and drops dead in a pool of his own blood. The fire mage immediately covers his mouth, looking like he is about to hurl. He whines that executing a tied-up captive feels exactly like slaughtering defenseless livestock. The blonde archer just sighs at his weak stomach. She reminds him that this psycho nearly killed them all, and dragging him back alive to face justice wouldn't even begin to make up for his massive body count. While they bicker, our boy spots a dusty journal on the ground. He flips it open to find a map covered in red targets, proving without a doubt that this guy was the infamous burner. But the real prize is a bunch of bizarre combination formulas for plants and crystals. Tehran smirks, wondering if that fake god voice in the psycho's head fed him these cheat codes too. The archer walks over to check on his findings, but Turan has a much better idea. He tells the crew to gather around the fresh corpse so they can all siphon up the dead wizard's leftover green mana. After slurping up the crispy rogue's leftover mana like a glowing green smoothie, our boy and the blonde archer head back to civilization to cash in. A corporate-looking suit hands over a fancy box, hyping the girl up as the new rising star of her noble house. Turan just plays the humble sidekick, claiming they are just going to keep traveling and hunting monsters. The archer tosses Turan a fat bag of coins for carrying the team and asks what his next move is. Our boy doesn't miss a beat, declaring he is making a beeline straight for the port city of Abacha. Before they split, the blonde leans in close to remind him to keep his mouth shut about the crazy bloodline-stealing secret they just tortured out of the burner. Turan promises to keep it on the down low, knowing that dropping a nuke like that without hard proof would just cause absolute chaos. With a final wave from the squad, our boy hits the road solo once again. Trekking across the endless sandy wasteland, Turan notices the air getting thick and sticky. He snaps his fingers to spark up a little flame, quickly realizing that the damp atmosphere is completely nerfing his firepower and draining his mana way faster than usual. But on the flip side, summoning a water orb is suddenly a total breeze, and as he crests the final dune, the reason becomes crystal clear. The endless desert finally gives way to a massive sparkling ocean. Our boy finally finishes his desert trek and spots a massive port city on the horizon. He strolls right into town looking for a ticket out of here. Inside a local tavern, a bunch of sailors are busy drowning their sorrows. They complain that their upcoming voyage to the Enrolled Desert is a guaranteed death trap. Between harpoon-throwing merfolk and bloodthirsty pirates, they are basically paying out funeral expenses instead of wages. The stressed-out captain admits they are absolutely desperate for a skilled knight to babysit them. Right on cue, our silver-haired protagonist steps up to the plate, but the grumpy captain immediately shoots him down. He claims their ship is not a luxury cruise and they do not even have room for extra cargo, let alone some random kid with a giant backpack. Turan does not even bother arguing. He just casually taps the captain's drink and instantly flash freezes the entire thing into a solid block of jagged ice. The captain's jaw practically hits the floor as he realizes he just disrespected a high-tier magic user. The whole crew immediately jumps up in sheer panic, but Turan just tells them to chill out. He casually mentions he is actually the one looking to get hired for the trip. The captain asks what brings a fancy knight to his humble table. Our boy offers a simple trade. He will act as their personal bodyguard against pirates and merfolk in exchange for a ride. The captain tries to warn him about the crappy pay and conditions, but our boy cuts him off. He does not care about the money. He just needs to get to the Enrolled Desert. Realizing he just scored a free powerhouse for the trip, the captain slams the table and eagerly welcomes him aboard. And with that, our boy secures his ticket out of town. Meanwhile, things are not looking so hot elsewhere, or rather, they are looking way too hot. A city is completely engulfed in flames, overrun by a horde of grotesque monsters. A lone soldier is fighting for his life in the burning ruins. He swings his sword desperately, trying to fend off the relentless beasts, but he is completely surrounded and running out of steam. Cut to a burning city where some random soldier is absolutely fighting for his life against a pack of glowing-eyed beasts. He realizes he is completely cooked. But before he becomes Monster Chow, the sky lights up. A massive bolt of golden lightning nukes the battlefield and turns the creatures into extra crispy bacon. The soldier turns around to see his savior floating down from the heavens. It is the Storm Princess Mesa, looking completely unbothered. She coldly tells the guy to get back to his unit and watches him scurry off. Right on cue, her uncle Cadram touches down behind her. He is the vice captain of the subjugation force and immediately starts babying her. He tells her not to overdo it since her life is worth way more than a couple of disposable grunts. Mesa brushes off the concern and demands a status update. Cadram admits they are reclaiming the area but still have not located the enemy tunnels. She tells him to drop a pin the second they find them so she can handle it personally. Then she blasts off into the sky like a literal superhero. The vice captain watches her fly off with a nasty smirk. He thinks his brother raised the girl way too recklessly. He figures she is just going to end up dead like her mom and little brother if she keeps acting like a hero. Meanwhile, our boy Turan is finally out on the open ocean. He is staring out at the water and realizing a major flaw in his plan. Even when he gets to the Zahar territory, he has absolutely no idea how he is going to find any clues about his dad. All he really has to go on is a sketchy little doodle of his mom. Before he can spiral too deep into his thoughts, a hand claps him on the shoulder. It is the one-eyed crewman joking that Turan is going to burn a hole in the ocean floor with that intense glare. Turan plays it off and says he is just marveling at how huge the sea is. The sailor asks if our landlubber knight is dealing with seasickness. Okay, but Turan is chilling. The guy is honestly just hyped that a fancy noble knight is actually taking the time to learn how to tie ropes and handle the sails. Turan just smiles and admits that playing sailor is actually pretty fun. Our boy is putting in the elbow grease on deck. The captain is absolutely hyped to have a literal powerhouse doing manual labor for free. Later on, Turan grabs some grub. It is mostly just pickled cabbage and mystery meat, but he is not complaining. An older sailor drops some nautical lore explaining that without the sour stuff, their gums would rot out from scurvy. Tehran is actually impressed by the science lesson. The old-timer casually adds that before they figured out the cabbage hack sailors used to just eat merfolk raw to survive. Gross but effective. Suddenly the chill vibes are ruined. The lookout up in the crow's nest starts screaming about an unmarked vessel heading straight for them. The old sailor sighs knowing their luck was way too good today. It is definitely pirates. The crew immediately scrambles to the armory barrels to grab whatever pointy sticks they can find. The captain squints through his spyglass and realizes the enemy ship is way faster than them. Running is not an option. Good thing they have a walking natural disaster on board. Tehran just stands there looking completely unbothered, ready to earn his free ride. Our boy tells the captain it is an easy dub as long as there are no nobles on board. The captain hypes up his crew and steers right into the danger zone. The two ships close the gap on the open water. The pirates mock them from across the waves, promising to spare their lives if they surrender. One of the crewmates actually buys it, but our silver-haired menace hits him with the cold, hard truth. Throwing them into the sea with chopped-off legs does not exactly count as mercy. Not even waiting for the ships to touch, our boy just yeets himself across the ocean gap. He lands right in the middle of the enemy deck with his sword drawn. The pirates are absolutely flabbergasted by the sheer disrespect. Before they can even swing their swords, a massive barrage of magical ice shards materializes out of thin air. The frozen blades rip through the pirates like wet paper. Our boy flexes his glowing blue magic, deciding there is zero reason to hold back against these bozos. Our boy doesn't waste a single second. He unleashes a massive barrage of ice shards that rain down on the pirate ship like a deadly hailstorm. He instantly turns half the crew into human pincushions. Seeing as they are just a bunch of low-life pirates, he flashes a cold smile and decides there is absolutely no reason to hold back. He raises a glowing blue hand and gets ready to clean house. Standing amidst the bloody aftermath, he watches the surviving pirates realize they are completely cooked. Desperation kicks in and one of them yells that they are dead anyway if they don't fight. The rest of the mob charges right at him. His eye glows with that signature blue mana. As the first guy swings an axe at him, our boy casually catches the attack with a swirling vortex of water. He instantly freezes it solid to form a massive ice sword right in his hands. The pirate swings with all his might, but our guy just effortlessly deflects the blow. He immediately counters and slashes the dude wide open to paint the deck red. The pirates think they have our boy dead to rights, but he just summons a pair of ice swords and casually blocks their incoming strikes before shoving them back. He immediately goes on the offensive, stabbing two of them simultaneously before spinning around to slice up a guy charging with a spear. One pirate tries to steady himself on the railing, but our boy just runs a blade straight through his chest. He spots a spiked mace swinging down and leaps backward to dodge the incoming attacks, his eyes locked on his next targets. He unleashes a devastating spinning slash that literally cuts one pirate in half and completely severs the legs of another. The guy who thought he was holding our boy hostage suddenly gets a pair of ice spikes erupted right through his back. He stares in absolute shock as his captive breaks free, glowing ice sword in hand and ready to finish the slaughter. The pirates think they have our boy cornered, with one guy grabbing him from behind, but Tehran just casually sprouts ice spikes right through the dude's chest, leaving him absolutely shook. He flips the script, holding an ice blade to his captor's throat while the rest of the crew sweats bullets. But he's not really the hostage-taking type. He slices right through his human shield and launches into the air, turning the deck into his own personal blender. He's spinning, slashing, and decapitating these guys like it's a casual Tuesday, painting the ship red with a flurry of brutal icy strikes. When the screaming finally stops, our boy is the last one standing, looking like an absolute menace surrounded by a sea of chopped-up bodies. The original crew finally grapples over, and the eye-patch captain strolls onto the deck, joking about whether our boy does part-time cleaning work since he just wiped out the entire pirate crew completely solo. The crew goes absolutely wild for our boy, cheering him on as the ultimate knight. One guy suggests he hit up the medic since he is literally dripping red, but Tehran just flashes a smile, letting them know it is all pirate juice. Later on, the ships are sailing smooth, and the captain pulls Tehran aside for a chat. Turns out the pirate ship was actually a stolen merchant vessel with a fresh paint job, and since Tehran soloed the entire crew, the captain hits him with the good news. Congratulations, he is now the proud owner of a massive boat. Tehran is a bit clueless on the protocol here, so the captain lays out the options. Returning it to the original owner for a reward is a bureaucratic nightmare, so he points to Miguel Island on the map, noting they pay top dollar for ships. Outside, the crew is busy tossing the pirate leftovers overboard. Tehran knows he cannot sail a whole ship by himself, so he offers the captain a sweet 20% cut to handle the sail. The captain is all smiles, bragging about his connections and promising a fat payout. But before they can celebrate their new business venture, a crewmate bursts through the door screaming for the captain. The captain is hyped about their new pirate ship payday, but a crewman suddenly bursts in with some wild news. Turns out the pirates were keeping a literal mermaid captive below deck. While the crew mops up the absolute bloodbath our boy left behind, he asks the captain about this VIP guest. The captain admits he hasn't even laid eyes on it yet, but he is definitely intrigued. As they head down into the ship's hold, the captain explains the black market economics of mythical creatures. Apparently, rich mainland nobles go absolutely feral for pretty female mermaids and will drop a fortune just to have one. They crack open the door, fully expecting a massive payday. But our boy's deadpan stare says it all. Sitting tied up on the floor isn't some beautiful aquatic waifu, it is just a scrawny blue dude. The captain is instantly disappointed, realizing a male mermaid is basically worthless on the market unless he is some legendary royal who can turn into a fish. The captive immediately starts yelling, demanding respect and claiming he is actually the 47th Prince of the North. But our guys just look at him like he is completely full of it, figuring he is just bluffing to avoid getting turned into fish sticks. The captain looks down at their new catch and asks if this so-called mermaid prince can actually transform into a fish. The blue guy yells back that he totally could if he wasn't tied up like a pretzel and completely bone dry. But the captain just rolls his one good eye and tells our boy it is an obvious bluff to escape. Looking down at the captive shivering on the floor, the captain casually mentions that he heard mermaids eat humans anyway. Our silver-haired menace does not even blink. He coldly decides that since the fish boy is not worth any money, they might as well just put him out of his misery. The captive's face instantly drops. Our boy raises his hand and charges up a lethal dose of blue magic. The mermaid shrinks back against his ropes and starts screaming for his life as the glowing energy lights up the dark room. Sweating bullets under our boy's dead-eyed stare, the fish prince grits his teeth and desperately plays his final card. He screams out that he can give them treasure. Realizing he finally has their attention, he nervously smiles and promises to lead them straight to the loot. Desperate to keep his head attached to his neck, the fish guy starts yapping about a hidden treasure. He claims it is a stash of legendary relics left behind by the Freyan gods themselves. Our boy figures it is worth a quick detour, so they dock at a nearby island town to prepare for a little treasure hunt. While the crew hits the taverns to celebrate their massive payday, the captain asks if our wizard is really going through with this side quest. Tehran just gives a confident smirk. The spot is supposedly super close, so he plans to just pop over, grab the loot, and be back before last call. But he is not taking any chances with his new tour guide. He chains the captive up in a tiny rowboat, completely ignoring the guy whining about how he is a royal prince who totally keeps his promises. The fish prince sweats bullets, begging to know if he will actually be set free once they find the stash. Tehran does not even bother answering. He just channels his blue mana straight into the boat, turning this dinghy into a literal speedboat. They blast across the ocean under the moonlight, with the captive warning him that land dwellers might not actually find mermaid treasure all that impressive. Tehran tells him to shut up and point the way. Once they hit the coordinates, our boy strips off his shirt and dives straight into the pitch-black water. He swims deep into the aquatic ruins, keeping his eyes peeled for these so-called godly relics. Our boy dives right in, holding his breath as he searches the depths for this supposed godly loot. He swims deeper into the abyss until he stumbles upon a massive coiled stone serpent statue just chilling at the bottom of the ocean. Under the glow of a full moon, our boy is out here playing midnight gondolier with his brand new captive. The blue fish kid warns him not to get his hopes up about this so-called divine treasure since land dwellers have weird standards. Tehran just tells him to shut up and paddle as they approach a creepy little island. Soon as his boots hit the sand, our guy isn't taking any chances. He immediately fires off a blue search spell to scan the depths below. The radar pings a whole aquarium of deep-sea weirdos, but thankfully no massive army of angry fish people waiting to jump him. He breathes a sigh of relief that he wasn't just led straight into a merfolk trap. With the boat secured on the rocky shore, they head straight into the pitch-black woods. The chained-up prince is practically vibrating with anxiety as he looks around the spooky forest, swearing up and down that the treasure is definitely around here somewhere. Tehran just gives him that deadpan stare, silently daring him to try anything funny. Our boy and his new blue-skin captive finally arrive at a glowing forest pool. The fish boy nervously asks if it is deep. Our guy casually drops that it is only a light 300 meters down. Just to be safe, he ties the royal guppy to a tree trunk. The kid immediately starts throwing a tantrum. He yells at our guy to let him go and stammers that if he dies down there, he is taking the secret of the treasure with him. Ignoring the yapping, our silver-haired wizard takes a massive gulp of air. He swan dives straight into the glowing water and leaves a massive splash in his wake. He plunges deep into the dark abyss. Bubbles trail behind him as he sinks further into the pitch-black water. He opens his eyes and decides it is time to see what this supposed divine treasure is all about. Hitting the ocean floor, he starts casually strolling through the underwater kelp forest like he is on a Sunday walk. He scans the rocky seabed looking for any sign of this legendary Freyan loot. Our boy dives deep into the murky depths. His eyes adjust to the dark water until a colossal shape looms ahead. It is a massive stone serpent coiled around the seabed. But that is not all. Standing right on top of the giant snakehead is a mysterious armored figure. Our guy is so spooked he accidentally lets out a gasp of air and quickly slaps his hands over his mouth to hold his breath. The sudden bubbles seem to catch the armored dude's attention. He immediately dives straight down towards our boy as the giant serpent jaws gape open right above him. Our guy stares closely and realizes it is a false alarm. The knight is just lying motionless on the rocky floor. He swims closer to inspect the body and is surprised to find it completely intact. It has not even turned into a wraith, making him wonder if this is actually one of those legendary Freyan beings. While checking out the armor, he spots a weird golden compass device glowing faintly in the dark water. Meanwhile, back on the surface, the blue-skinned captive is still tied to a tree, probably sweating bullets, wondering if our guy just became fish food. Our boy bursts out of the water, gasping for air. The tied-up fish kid screams his lungs out, thinking he just saw a ghost, but our silver-haired guy just climbs onto the shore with a smug grin. He checks out his brand new loot. The golden compass device glows with a bright blue flame right on his chest. Suddenly, he can literally see the fish boy's internal energy lighting up like a neon sign. He realizes this little gadget is basically a radar for living things and mana. With a quick flex of his magic, he shatters the heavy chains binding the captive. The blue kid is absolutely stunned. He fully expected our guy to just snatch the treasure and toss him right back on the black market. But our boy is a man of his word. Since the kid played nice and did not lie about the loot, he gets to walk free. The fish boy starts bawling his eyes out. Our guy casually throws his coat back on while the kid promises to tell his dad not to kill him if humans and merfolk ever go to war. The kid then takes a massive leap back into the ocean. As he sinks into the depths, a massive green aura explodes around him. Our boy watches from the shore and realizes the kid was actually telling the truth about being a literal prince. Back at the docks, the ship's deck is looking like a medieval torture chamber. A bunch of shirtless crewmates are groaning in pain while getting their backs patched up. Turns out a bearded taskmaster is whipping the absolute soul out of them for coming back late and starting a bar fight. Our boy steps out of his cabin, wondering what all the screaming is about. The crew explains that the captain does not play around with insubordination. As the whip cracks again, our guy notices something crazy. Every time the lash hits, a glowing, colorful aura leaks out of their wounds. He realizes his magic eyes are literally letting him see their life force draining away in real time. Talk about a grim superpower. Meanwhile, the eye-patch captain is down in the town tavern handling business. Our boy pulls up to the table and gets introduced to a hook-handed pirate named Samuel. Samuel is ready to buy their stolen cargo for a cool 1,000 gold coins. But our guy is not trying to lug around a giant sack of heavy metal like a loot goblin. He tells them gold is way too annoying to carry and asks if they can pay him in high-tier magic tools or holy relics instead. Back at the tavern, our boy realizes lugging around 1,000 gold coins is a massive headache. He asks the eye-patch captain if he can just get paid in magic tools or holy relics instead. The captain tells him this backwater town doesn't have that kind of premium loot but suggests they hit up Nomad. It is the second Skiz city in the Zahar territory and run by a bloodline of beast tamers. Our guy immediately pictures the most derpy horse imaginable but admits having a mount that actually understands basic instructions would be a massive W for his road trip. With their pockets lined with pirate cash, the crew sets sail on the open ocean. The sailors are absolutely hyped about their new fat paychecks and are practically worshipping our silver-haired wizard as a literal godsend. But the good vibes do not last long. Up in the crow's nest, the lookout suddenly spots something terrifying on the horizon. A massive storm rolls in and the captain starts screaming at everyone to brace themselves if they do not want to end up as fish food. The crew scrambles across the slippery deck trying to tie down the heavy cargo crates while the ocean absolutely batters the ship. The wind howls and the wooden rigging starts snapping under the intense pressure. Things go from bad to worse as several sailors lose their grip and get violently thrown from the ladders. One poor guy gets launched headfirst off the side of the boat, screaming for his life as he plummets straight toward the churning black waves below. The storm hits hard. A crewman falls overboard, about to become fish food. But our boy isn't about to let his ride sink. He flexes that blue telekinesis, catching the falling sailors mid-air and gently dropping them back on deck like claw machine prizes. The guy scrambles away, absolutely shook. Tehran doesn't stop there. He waves his glowing hands and puts the magic to work on the ship itself. Ropes tie themselves, and loose cargo crates get locked down tight to the deck. Outside, the ship is getting absolutely battered by the storm, but thanks to our overpowered shepherd, they aren't going under today. Down in the hold, the rest of the crew is huddled up and shivering like chihuahuas. When Tehran steps inside, they immediately drop to their knees, praising him for literally saving their lives. He casually brushes it off and asks if anyone got hurt. The eye-patch captain wrings out his soaked shirt and asks if they are actually going to survive this mess. Tehran tells him they just have to trust the ship and the guy steering it. But as he looks around at the freezing crew, he realizes they have a much more immediate problem on their hands. Our boy heads down into the hold where the crew is freezing their butts off. He decides to play human heater, but the captain immediately freaks out. Starting a fire on a wooden boat during a storm sounds like a one-way ticket to the bottom of the ocean. But our guy just snaps his fingers and summons a massive fireball like it is absolutely nothing. He sends the flames swirling safely across the ceiling to warm up the whole room without burning a single splinter. The crew is absolutely mesmerized by his insane control and just basks in the glow. The captain finally gets it. He remembers the old sayings about how humans serve wizards and wizards rule over humans while taking care of them. Seeing our boy in action makes it all click as they literally bow down to their glowing savior. Down in the ship's cabin, our boy Taran is casually flexing his magic to keep the place warm and cozy. The eye-patch captain watches in absolute awe. He finally gets what the old geezers used to preach about wizards ruling over humans but also taking care of them. Taran is basically a glowing holy space heater for these guys. They finally drop anchor at the largest city in the northern Enril Desert. Before they part ways, the captain hands Taran a fat pouch of cash. It is a cut from selling that pirate ship they hijacked earlier. Taran tries to play it humble, but the captain insists it is a gift from the whole crew so the gods do not smite them. Taran bags the loot and promises to treat them to a massive feast if their paths ever cross again. The crew gives him a loud send-off, screaming their thanks from the deck while the captain throws up a respectful salute. With his pockets heavy and his reputation spotless, our shepherd wizard struts into the bustling desert city. Our boy finally touches down in the bustling desert capital. He strolls through the sandy streets, taking in the sights, but he is not here to play tourist. He flips on his Manvision to scope out the local power levels and immediately spots glowing blue cores inside the citizens. A heavily armored guard tries to block his path, but our guy just casually unleashes a massive wave of blue aura right in his face. The guard instantly folds like a cheap lawn chair and bows in absolute respect. He assumes our boy is some high-ranking noble and grants him VIP access straight into the Grand Palace. Inside, he gets a quick wardrobe change into some fresh white robes before respectfully bowing to the head honcho of the estate. The tattooed boss kicks back on his sofa and stares a little too intensely at our guy. He definitely recognizes those eyes from somewhere. Our boy introduces himself as a fallen guardian and gets straight to business, saying he is here to buy a monster. The house head is totally cool with it and tells his daughter to show him around. But before he dips, Taran asks if the guy has seen someone who looks like him, calling out his hesitation from earlier. The house head admits he actually did, leaving our boy completely stunned by the sudden lore drop. As the daughter leads him down the hall, she starts yapping about his deep pockets and asks if his bloodline is perfect for mercenary work. But Taran is completely zoned out, racking his brain over who the house head saw in his face. Was it his mother, and was that enough to trigger the memory? Or was it the father he has literally never even met? They finally arrive at the breeding grounds, walking down a massive corridor lined with custom habitats. Taran looks around in awe, spotting some wolves in a forest enclosure and a giant elephant just chilling in its own space. Our boy checks out a horse, asking for the price tag. The guide hits him with a casual 4,000 gold coins, instantly shattering his illusion of being a baller. Turns out he is still on broke boy status compared to these noble breeders. He debates just giving up on the whole monster pet idea, but lugging a heavy chest of cash across the desert sounds like absolute torture. Suddenly, he stops in his tracks. He spots some majestic feathers and locks eyes with a massive brooding eagle chilling in a hanging cage. He asks for the price on this feathered unit. The guide admits it is a total steal for its mana capacity, even if it drains the rest of his savings. She hypes up its strength and flying skills, but our guy can tell there is a catch. He steps up to the cage and asks if the bird can understand him. The eagle literally nods back. He praises its intelligence, and the bird just keeps nodding like it knows exactly how awesome it is. But when he asks if it is actually smart, the bird shakes its head no, playing humble. The guide chimes in, complaining that she tried teaching the stubborn menace how to read, but it flat out refused to learn. She cannot tell if it is just lazy or actually illiterate. The saleswoman complains that this giant bird is a total waste of space. It has crazy strength and eats a ton of expensive monster meat, but it is way too stubborn to listen to anyone it thinks is stupid. Our boy points to himself and asks if he is the reason the bird is acting up. The eagle gives him a solid nod. Taran chuckles and asks if it will actually bother learning how to read if he buys it. Another nod seals the deal. The house head steps up and whips out a glowing magical crest to perform the bonding ritual. With the contract complete, the massive eagle happily busts out of its cage and perches right on Taran's arm. The boss is honestly shocked at how well the picky bird follows him and tells him to take good care of it. But as Taran turns to leave, the house head pauses. He admits he was just going to let it slide, but he has to ask if our boy has any connection to a guy named Talus. The house head suddenly pauses and asks our boy if he has any connection to a guy named Talus. The silver-haired wizard is caught completely off guard, but before he can even answer, the boss waves it off and tells him to forget he asked. Our guy immediately connects the dots, realizing this Talus dude must look exactly like him. Figuring it is worth a shot, our boy pulls out a hand-drawn sketch and asks if the boss happens to know a woman named Vijay. The house head takes one look at the drawing and shakes his head, saying there is absolutely no way he would ever forget a beauty like that. Our guy just nods and accepts the dead end. Suddenly, his brand new pet eagle takes off into the air. The boss is confused, but our boy just smiles and says that since the deal is finalized, it is only natural to take his new purchase for a test drive. He raises his arm to the sky and the massive bird swoops right back down to lock its razor-sharp talons onto his wrist. Instead of just perching there, the absolute unit of a bird literally lifts our guy off the ground and carries him down the massive corridor. He enjoys the free flight and touches down right at the dining hall where the servants are already waiting to welcome him in for a feast. The guide introduces our boy to the rest of the dinner party, mentioning he came from the Carmine side. A scarred meathead immediately questions if that isn't near Arabian territory. The guide quickly shuts him down, telling him not to associate their new guest with those weak sparrows. The meathead introduces himself as Dolph Marin from a history bloodline and goes in for a handshake. Of course he tries to crush our boy's hand to assert dominance, but Tehran just casually flares his blue aura and tanks the grip without breaking a sweat. Dolph smirks, impressed that a guardian bloodline is actually sturdy. A woman in the back interrupts their little macho contest. She demands to know where the picky eagle is, since that's the only reason she showed up. Tehran casually mentions he let the bird fly around outside since it was tired from practicing its writing all morning, but offers to call it over. Right on cue, the massive bird swoops in through the window and lands perfectly on Tehran's arm. The woman excitedly reaches out to pet it, but the eagle immediately snaps at her hand, making her scream in absolute frustration. Guess it really is picky. Our guy is chilling at a fancy dinner party with his new feathered friend, telling the bird to keep its cool. The conversation shifts to the dark elf tribes acting up out west and the Arabian subjugation force. But these snobby guests start running their mouths about the commander, calling her Skinny Mesa and hoping she gets assassinated. They are just straight up roasting her, saying she is skin and bones and pitying her future husband. Our boy is just sitting there, probably plotting their demise in his head. The gossip continues as they complain about their own succession issues, wishing someone named Talus would just make a decision already. That name hits our guy like a truck. He immediately asks what kind of guy this Talus is. The woman next to him gives him a look and asks if he has got some sort of connection to the guy. Our boy just sits there, wheels turning, realizing his dad might be a much bigger deal than he originally thought. At dinner, the lady asks our boy what the deal is with this Talus guy. The silver-haired kid keeps a straight face, but internally the gears are turning. He realizes that the face the house head saw in him belongs to the second-in-command of Zahar. If that guy really is his dad and our boy turns out to be a disappointment, he could get squashed like a bug the second he is discovered. Talk about some serious family pressure. Later, he is chilling on a bench, watching his new pet bird peck at the dirt. The bird scratches out that it is a black eagle. He asks if it has picked a name yet, but the bird just shakes its head. So he asks the real question. Why did it choose him? The bird straight up writes in the dirt that he is good and his inside fits perfectly. Okay, the spelling needs work, but the sentiment is there. Our boy crouches down to correct his new feathered friend's spelling. He wonders if this picky bird chose him because of his mixed bloodline. Suddenly, this beefcake rolls up acting all buddy-buddy. But our guy has his number. He knows this dude just wants to flex on him to feel superior. The musclehead offers to be his personal sore guide, but when our boy hits him with a hard pass, the guy just waves and dips. The silver-haired kid narrows his eyes. That was way too easy. Something is definitely fishy. Moving on, he strolls through town with a couple of guards tailing him on the househead's orders. He hits up a local shop, slapping down some coin for a desert guidebook and some religious texts. Gotta do the homework before a road trip. With his new reading material in hand, he flips through the pages while walking. The map might be garbage, but the lore drops are exactly what he needs. Our boy realizes his dad might have been a massive deal in this desert clan. He takes a stroll through the local town and spots a few folks glowing with some weird blue flames. He keeps his cool and just keeps walking. He heads straight out the gates and into the open desert. Looking out over the massive dunes, he decides to take it on foot for a bit. He gives his new giant eagle a look, and the bird just stares right back. Our guy smiles and says he just feels like walking right now. Night falls over the wasteland and an owl hoots from a dead tree. Our silver-haired protagonist keeps trekking through the dark sand. Suddenly, his face gets serious. His boots grind to a halt. He definitely senses something creeping up on him. He looks back at a shady silhouette hiding behind a rock and tells them to come out. It is that massive meathead from the dinner party. Our boy asks why the guy thinks he walked all the way out here instead of just flying on his giant bird. The musclehead just laughs and claims he was worried about a young kid traveling alone in such a dangerous desert. Yeah, right, buddy. Our boy cuts right to the chase and asks if the meathead is just after his mana. The guy drops the friendly act real quick. His eyes go pitch black as he cracks his knuckles and asks if our boy is stupid for coming out here alone knowing that. The scarred dude assumes our boy is just some fallen noble from a guardian bloodline. He figures our guy has a ton of mana but absolutely zero physical strength left to back it up. Our boy just smirks and agrees that he must look like a pretty tempting snack right about now. He tells his eagle to take to the skies and get out of the way. Then his hand starts leaking this dark smoky aura as he casually drops the hardest line. He tells the meathead that he wasn't the only one out here looking for a delicious meal. The musclehead just laughs it off. He calls stealth magic a cheap parlor trick for spies that only hides your body but leaves your presence wide open. He tells our boy not to even think about running away, but a second later he is standing alone in the desert completely shook. He suddenly realizes he can't sense our boy's presence at all. No footprints, no smell, and absolutely no sound. The meathead's eye twitches as a terrifying thought crosses his mind. Is this kid actually from the legendary Zahar bloodline? But before he can even finish that thought, a rock clocks him right in the jaw. He stumbles back completely clueless about what just hit him. Our boy does not give him a single second to breathe. He unleashes a rapid-fire barrage of telekinetic rocks. The scarred dude gets absolutely battered from every angle and throws his arms up in a desperate attempt to block the invisible onslaught. Realizing he is basically a sitting duck in the dark, the meathead stomps the ground and unleashes a massive wave of fire across the sand. He screams into the void, demanding his opponent show himself. He summons a whole squad of floating fireballs to light up the night sky, hoping to expose the stealth spell. But our boy just hits him with the Uno reverse card. Swirling rings of flame suddenly rain down from above. The scarred dude screams in pure rage as the fiery artillery explodes all around him, forcing him to run for his life. The meathead gets desperate. He leaps up and drops a massive purple glowing kick that absolutely shatters the desert floor. He swings wildly and screams into the void, demanding his invisible enemies show themselves. But nobody answers. The guy stands alone in his little crater, panting like a dog. He finally realizes he is completely outmatched and decides it is time to hit the road. He sprints across the sand, leaving a trail of dust explosions behind him. He copes by telling himself that even if his opponent is a Zahar, they can never catch up to his physical speed. But then he hears a flapping sound. He looks up and sees our boy casually flying through the starry night sky, getting carried by his giant black eagle. The silver-haired wizard drops down right in front of the exhausted fighter. The scarred meathead drops to his knees, gasping for air and begging for mercy. But our boy just looks down at him with absolutely zero pity. He tells the guy he already knows that is not going to happen. Reaching out his hand, our silver-haired menace summons a massive blazing inferno with the silhouette of his new eagle companion looming overhead. The desert lights up as a giant pillar of fire completely incinerates his would-be attacker. Our boy stands over the smoking remains of his latest victim. He realizes that if this guy was an actual trained guardian of the Zahar family, his basic rock-slinging wouldn't have cut it. He definitely needs some stronger piercing magic to break through heavy defenses. But for now, it is time to feast. He reaches out his bandaged hand and starts slurping up all that sweet green mana right out of the dude's corpse. Instead of just absorbing it into his body, he funnels the juice straight into that fancy Freyan compass he looted earlier. It works perfectly as a mana battery, but he is a little hesitant to just chug the mystery liquid directly. He decides it needs a bit more testing before he takes a sip. Later on, our guy is literally getting carried through the desert sky by his giant pet bird. He looks down and spots exactly what he has been searching for: a massive golden pyramid just chilling in the sand. To get the scoop on this giant tomb, he hits up a local tavern and starts chatting up one of the regulars. Back at the tavern, our boy is chatting up the local waitress. She thinks he is absolutely crazy for traveling solo, but he just wants to know the entry fee for the Tomb of the Gods. Turns out his little guidebook is outdated. The waitress drops the bomb that the place is on strict lockdown. Some heavy-hitting VIPs rolled in a week ago and completely shut the place down. When he asks who has that kind of pull, she just points up. It is the Zahar family. Oh yeah, the exact people he has been looking for are right in his backyard. Meanwhile, deep inside that very tomb, things are not going great for the VIPs. A squad of armed guards are wandering a massive stone maze, and the stress is definitely getting to them. One scarred dude starts screaming his head off until a massive meathead with a giant circular blade tells him to keep it down. The scarred guy blames the meathead for dragging them into this mess, but the big guy claps right back. He reminds the complainer that he only tagged along to secure a cushy job once the meathead becomes the next head of the Zahar family. This beefcake is on a serious mission. He remembers his grandfather telling him a secret legend about a hidden underground labyrinth beneath the tomb. Supposedly, whoever solves its mysteries is guaranteed to become the next head of the house. He has been searching for this secret entrance every single year and was starting to think it was just a myth, but standing in front of a glowing purple doorway, he realizes the legend is totally real. Meanwhile, deep inside the tomb, the Zahar family goons are having a terrible time. The scarred guy leading them thinks the gods are finally on his side right before a horde of grotesque, multi-eyed flesh monsters crawl out of the shadows to ruin his day. Cornered in the ancient temple, the squad is completely out of water and panicking. Suddenly, a massive shadow entity manifests between the pillars. The scarred leader is absolutely terrified while his dreadlocked buddy realizes he can somehow understand the monster's alien language. The shadow drops a massive lore bomb announcing that the Night Hunter has returned. Back on the surface, our silver-haired boy is just trying to mind his own business in the local market. He figures the nobles are trying to monopolize the whole area and decides he needs to lay low so he does not end up in another annoying situation with the local househeads. He hits up a merchant stall and spots some weird rocks. The vendor explains it is saltpeter and claims eating it extends your lifespan, which is definitely a scam. But our boy recognizes the name immediately. He flips through the crazy pyromaniac wizard spellbook he looted earlier, realizing he just found the main ingredient to make some highly explosive magic. Our boy flips through the pyromaniac's old recipe book and decides to cook up some of that explosive spirit of fire. He hits up a local merchant for some sulfur, but the bald guy shuts him down. Apparently, that stuff is super rare out here in the desert. Tehran scratches his head, realizing he might just have to track down a volcano instead. The merchant tries to upsell him on some precious black sugar, but our guy passes since sweets just aren't his vibe. Since he cannot make bombs yet, he decides to upgrade his arsenal the old-fashioned way. He launches a compressed clump of sand at a nearby rock formation, absolutely shattering it on impact. Not bad at all. He realizes sand bullets are way better than regular rocks. Plus, he can mold them mid-flight into sharp spikes to boost their piercing power, or just scatter them like a shotgun blast. It eats up a bit more mana, but it saves his limited stash of processed stones. He even figures he can use the sand to bind ankles or blind enemies, making a mental note to practice swimming through the dunes later. With his new tricks locked and loaded, our silver-haired shepherd finally arrives at his destination. He stares up at a massive imposing pyramid sitting right in the middle of the wasteland. Taking in the sheer size of the giant tomb, he takes a second to seriously reconsider his life choices, wondering if he should just pack it up and head to a different city entirely. Our boy quickly changes his mind about leaving. He stares down the massive entrance to the tomb and decides a little breaking and entering never hurt anyone. He figures he can just dip if he gets caught, activating his stealth magic to blend right into the rocks. But his solo stealth mission is immediately interrupted. He spots two guards dragging a very noisy, very squirming sack. He ducks behind a pillar to tail them, wondering what kind of shady desert business requires bagging a guy. He follows them down into a massive underground chamber and spots a giant swirling black portal just chilling on the floor. The guards dump their captive out of the sack, and the poor dude looks absolutely terrified. Our boy watches from the shadows, totally confused as to why the kidnappers look just as spooked as their victim. The guards force the trembling man to carry some barrels straight into the dark vortex. Listening in on their chatter, our boy realizes this is some high-level animal control magic. He also overhears that Purga, the top candidate to be the next head of House Zahar, is actually trapped inside. The poor captive is forced to carry supplies right into the swirling abyss of animal control magic. Our boy watches from behind some crates as the guy slowly sinks into the dark vortex. The guards start gossiping and wondering if their boss is even still alive in there. They mention they are continuously sending in food and water but are terrified to contact the main house. Tehran overhears the juicy details. The guy trapped inside is none other than Purga, a top candidate to be the next head of House Zahar. Hearing that a massive VIP is stuck in a hole gives our boy a wicked idea. A creepy smile creeps onto his face as he steps out of the shadows cloaked in his dark aura. He figures if he saves this big shot, he can easily finesse his way into the Zahar family. He takes a leap of faith right into the dark portal, but the second he crosses the threshold, his mind clears up. He immediately realizes he was acting like an absolute idiot. He was totally bewitched by the vibe of the place. He starts questioning his whole master plan and wonders what guarantee he even has that a ruthless Zahar noble would ever repay a debt. He touches down in a massive underground chamber packed with people. Right in front of him, some poor guy is groveling on the stone floor begging for his life. Our boy lands in the underground chamber just in time to witness the local welcoming committee. A scarred meathead sitting between two water barrels complains about the new arrival making too much noise. Instead of helping the poor guy groveling on the floor, he orders his goon to silence him permanently. The lackey happily obliges with a brutal boot straight to the skull. Watching from the shadows, our silver-haired menace instantly clocks the vibe. So this is the infamous Purga Zahar. The guy casually murders people just to steal their water rations without a single ounce of guilt. Tehran realizes his whole plan of saving this scumbag to earn a favor was completely delusional. He was dead wrong. Stepping out into the light, our boy accepts that guys like this do not pay their debts. Long ago, the Enro plains were basically an all-you-can-eat buffet for these massive, ugly giants. They devoured everything in sight until the lush land turned into a barren sandbox. And when they got thirsty, they just started juicing humans like Capri Suns. But right before humanity gets completely wiped off the map, a mysterious cloaked dude pulls up. This is the Night Hunter of the Freyans. He starts spamming holy light arrows like a max-level ranger and absolutely deletes the giant population. To say thanks for not letting them become giant smoothies, the surviving humans offer him 3 beautiful brides. These ladies pop out 3 kids with some seriously busted genetics. One can turn invisible, one can control shadows, and the last one is basically a walking biohazard. Naturally, sibling rivalry kicks in over who gets to rule the desert. The eldest brother dips out to avoid the drama, leaving the Shadow and Poison Bros to wage a brutal turf war. But just when the desert is completely wrecked, the eldest brother makes his grand return. He casually claps both of his younger siblings and claims the throne for himself, cementing his bloodline as the true ancestors of the Night Hunter. Our boy stands in this massive pillared hall trying to process what he just heard. A mysterious voice just dropped the name of a literal god. He wonders if this whole setup is connected to those Zahar nobles who barged in here before him. Technically, he is a distant descendant of that bloodline too, so maybe he just triggered some ancient family group chat. But before he can check his ancestry results, a heavy footstep slaps against the stone. Our guy whips around as his eyes widen. He realizes he is definitely not alone in this creepy tomb. A hunched-over shadow with a glowing blue core is just chilling in the hallway. Relying on his trusty stealth magic, he creeps up on the pale, muscular beast. He gets a good look at its grotesque, veiny body and drooling face. Our boy just stares at it in pure disgust. He notes that this thing is thoroughly unpleasant to look at, like bro definitely skipped his skincare routine for the last 1,000 years. But suddenly the monster snaps its head back. Its giant creepy eye locks dead onto our guy. Yeah, it completely saw through his top-tier stealth magic. The beast lunges forward with its jaws wide open ready for a snack. Our boy barely leans back in time to dodge a massive claw swipe that definitely would have taken his head clean off. Our boy claps his bandaged hands together and unleashes a massive blast of fire right into the ugly mugs of these pale freaks. The flames push the monsters back, giving him just enough room to slide away into the shadows. He is genuinely baffled. How did these brainless meatheads see right through his top-tier Zahar stealth magic? Luckily for him, their detection range is basically 0. The moment he backs up, the creatures just stand there looking completely lost. Since they are playing dumb, our shepherd decides to take the first swing. He tosses a small crystal into the air, winds up his pitch, and fires off a glowing blue energy slash that cleanly slices right through one of the monster's thick skulls. The beast drops dead on the stone floor, spilling blood everywhere, but the craziest part is that its buddies do not even flinch. They just completely ignore their dead friend. Seeing an opening, our boy creeps up to the fresh corpse to claim his hard-earned loot. He reaches his hand out to absorb its mana, but his eye widens when he realizes the energy yield is absolute garbage. Our boy absorbs the green mist rising from the corpse and quickly realizes this ugly thing is actually a magic creature. But the math is not mathing. For a beast with that much physical strength, the mana payout is absolute garbage. Plus his shiny new holy relic is completely ignoring it. He stares into its gaping maw wondering what the heck this thing actually is. Suddenly his sharp eyes catch movement. He immediately dips into the shadows just as a squad of heavy boots marches into the hall. It is the Zahar search party led by that dreadlocked musclehead. He halts his crew right in front of the fresh carcass and immediately realizes they have a rat scurrying around their maze. His goons are skeptical since a full rescue squad would be making way more noise. But the boss is not taking any chances. He orders his men to rig the area with traps so they can catch their mystery guest. The light mage asks if they should hunt down the rat first, but the dreadlocked leader decides to let him run around. He figures they can just use the guy as monster bait later. Our boy watches them walk off from the shadows, completely unbothered. Since he can see perfectly in the dark thanks to his relic, he easily steps right over the traps they set for him. Meanwhile, the dreadlock squad is stumbling around blind, triggering their own explosive traps left and right. Tehran just chills, marking safe zones with low monster activity to slowly expand his map. When a hallway is too packed with these pale freaks, he just unleashes a massive blue energy slash to clear the way. Or even better, he just herds them toward the other group. The dreadlock squad is getting swarmed constantly, complaining that the monsters are attacking way too often just because they have their lights on. They are starting to build up a nice little stockpile of loot from all the dead knights they keep finding. One of the goons even has the nerve to complain that they should have kept the knights alive just so they would have someone to wait on them hand and foot. Tehran listens in, absolutely disgusted by these guys. But before he can do anything about it, a massive roar echoes through the hall, catching the leader's attention. Our boy flashes a devious smile. With the Zahar meatheads acting as the perfect noisy bait, he dips out to explore the deeper parts of the labyrinth completely unbothered. His solo scouting mission pays off when he stumbles upon a massive stone door sealed with glowing blue runes. He stares up at the colossal structure, wondering if he just hit the jackpot and found the exit. Suddenly the ground rumbles. His eyes widen as the central mechanism grinds open, revealing a gigantic blue eyeball that locks right onto him. A booming voice echoes in his head declaring that the conditions are not met. But before he can even stress about getting rejected by a door, the giant eye shifts its gaze downward. It spots the glowing green Freyan compass hanging from his belt. The system immediately updates, recognizing him as a wave rider and confirming the conditions are now met. Our boy just smirks right back at the giant eyeball. He squares his shoulders and steps forward into the unknown. Our boy steps up to this massive stone door rocking a giant glowing blue eye. It is giving major final boss room vibes. He starts wondering if Wave Rider and Mimic are just dormant bloodlines he has not unlocked yet, but then he notices the giant eyeball is actually staring straight at his Freyan compass. He cracks a smile, realizing the door is using the Holy Relic's abilities to fill in the blanks on his resume. He decides to just ask the giant Siri what the deal is. The door actually answers, explaining that the missing types handle underwater buffs and flow detection. Tehran looks at his hand, realizing he definitely does not have those powers yet. He asks the rigid spirit what this whole labyrinth is for. The door drops the lore. Anyone who slays the chief while holding all 4 bloodline types becomes the legendary Night Hunter, and the escape route will finally open. But before our guy can celebrate his upcoming godhood, the system completely crashes. The eye starts tweaking out, flashing massive error signs because he is missing the Shadow Alchemist type. The ancient security system literally does not know what to do with him. Our boy steps up to the massive stone door, and the giant blue eye embedded in the rock immediately locks onto his holy relic. The door's spirit runs a quick vibe check on his bloodlines, confirming he has 4 out of the 6 required types to be the true Night Hunter. But since he is missing the Shadow Alchemist trait, the system throws a massive error and flags him as an unauthorized fake. Tehran's eyes go wide as the heavy stone doors grind open. The system initiates its autonomous judgment protocol and deploys the Labyrinth Chief to take out the trash. A colossal, grotesque mountain of flesh with a terrifying human face and long black hair emerges from the darkness, glaring down at our shepherd and declaring that all fakes must die. Not one to just stand there and get squashed, our guy immediately goes on the offensive. He channels his mana and unleashes a devastating dual attack, blasting the giant beast with a massive combination of high-tier fire and lightning magic. But as the smoke clears, the monster just stands there completely unfazed, brushing off the ultimate combo like it was a light breeze. The towering behemoth looms over him, proving that a straight-up one-on-one fight is completely off the table. Realizing he is severely outmatched in raw power, Tehran just flashes a cocky smirk, already formulating a toxic plan to use the other trap nobles as live bait. Our boy realizes he is completely outmatched in a straight one-on-one fight, so he hits the gas and books it down the corridor. But this massive fleshy monstrosity is not just going to let him walk away. It roars for him to stay right there and launches its massive bulk through the air, chasing him down the pillared hall with a whole horde of glowing-eyed freaks right behind it. The silver-haired wizard weaves through the swarm of pale grunts like he is playing a lethal game of tag. He leaps over their heads and slides past their claws, thinking he just made a clean getaway. But he celebrates a second too early. Another hulking beast drops right out of the ceiling and ambushes him from above. The monster slams down hard, completely shattering our guy's blue magical shield with a deafening crack. He grunts from the impact, genuinely shocked that his defenses just got breached like wet paper. But he does not just take the hit. He instantly draws his blade and slashes upward, decapitating the overgrown freak in a massive spray of blood. Before he can even catch his breath, the main boss crashes down into the hallway. The faceless giant lunges forward and slams its massive fist into the stone, creating a shockwave that our boy barely manages to roll away from. Getting back on his feet, he realizes this chase will not end until one of them is dead. So he slides to a halt, flashes a cocky smirk, and grips his weapon, deciding it is time to have a little family bonding session with his monstrous cousin. Our boy barely dodges a massive bloody swipe from the Labyrinth Chief. He realizes this place is literally designed to forge gods, but he has no time to ponder the lore right now. The giant beefcake monster leaps down right on top of him. This grotesque torso-faced freak lunges forward and slams its massive fist into the ground. The shepherd hits a tactical dodge roll to avoid getting turned into a silver-haired pancake and immediately books it down the hall. The monster glares at him with pure rage. He knows he absolutely has to kill this thing to escape, but fighting it head-on is a death sentence. So he flashes a devious smirk. He decides it is time for some forced family bonding and leads the charging beast straight toward his Zahar cousins. He whips around and unleashes a massive blue telekinetic slash right into the monster to keep its aggro. He lands another clean hit to make sure the big guy is following him. Meanwhile, down the hall, the scarred warrior is absolutely losing his mind trying to fight off the endless horde. The surviving goons catch their breath over a pile of dead pale freaks. The dreadlocked guy complains that there is no end to them, but before they can even pop a health potion, the white-haired leader hears something sketchy echoing down the hall. Dreadlocks immediately starts sweating bullets. A massive shadowy figure lumbers out of the darkness. The scarred leader and his squad just stare like deer in headlights as this absolute unit of a boss monster charges right at them. Dreadlock screams at his team to stop standing around like NPCs and actually do something, but it is way too late. The boss monster plows straight through the front line, turning the poor fodder into absolute red paste while Dreadlock screams his lungs out. One of the beefier warriors tries to play hero by leaping down with a heavy strike. Another goon actually manages to land a sneaky stab right in the monster's back. But the boss barely even feels it. He instantly spins around and delivers a devastating right hook that sends the backstabber flying into the next zip code. The monster then goes full sicko mode, brutally crushing and stomping the rest of the squad into the pavement like they owe him money. One of the mages tries to play hero with a fireball, screaming at the beast, but this big guy does not even flinch. He just punches straight through the poor dude, turning him into a bloody mist, and continues his absolute rampage on the rest of the squad. To make matters worse, a whole horde of those smaller pale freaks swarms in. The guy with the mechanical arm is fighting for his life, realizing they are about to get completely wiped out. Meanwhile, our scarred buddy Purga is just watching from the sidelines, scheming to use these guys as meat shields. Suddenly, this crazed warrior with glowing red eyes decides it is his time to shine. He charges in with a massive axe and actually manages to land a solid hit on the giant's knee, making the big guy stumble. He starts laughing like an absolute maniac, thinking he just did something huge. But his victory lap lasts about half a second before a massive fist comes crashing down on him. The dude gets absolutely flattened and sent flying, coughing up his own internal organs. Purga just stands there in pure shock, watching his entire support group get turned into paste. With his entire squad wiped out and his political dreams officially cooked, the scarred warrior is left staring down the barrel of this massive boss. In a desperate last stand, he chucks his curved blade right at the giant, weaving through its massive swings to land a solid blood-splattering hit. But before he can even pat himself on the back, a massive surge of blue energy erupts from the ceiling. Our boy swoops in with a devastating downward slash, slamming into the monster's chest and forcing the hulking beast to actually slide back from the sheer impact. The giant takes a massive slash to the chest, but the big guy just shrugs it off like a paper cut. He even compliments the solid hit. The scarred warrior looks up in absolute shock right before a massive hand punches straight through his spine. He spits up blood, completely bewildered about where his master plan went wrong. The blood-soaked beast ignores the dying man and demands the fake reveal himself. He starts looking around for his real target. Our boy realizes with a start that the scarred guy was just bait all along. He curses under his breath and swings his weapon down hard. The monster whips around with a crazed look in its giant eye. It screams that it finally found the fake Night Hunter as our shadowy protagonist steps into the light ready to throw down. Our boy leaps from the shadows with his glowing purple axe raised high. The giant pale freak looks up just in time to realize it is dealing with a fake Night Hunter. Tehran brings the weapon down with everything he has. The blade bites deep into the monster's massive shoulder and sends a geyser of blood spraying across the stone floor. The beast roars out in pure agony and calls him a fake. Turin lands on his feet and wipes the sweat from his brow. He is a little disappointed that he still lacks the raw destructive power to one-shot this absolute unit. He pulls out his glowing green compass relic. He hates having to rely on borrowed tricks, but he needs to test out the mimic ability he stole from that desert warrior. The giant freak charges forward screaming for the fake to die. Tehran just watches calmly as his blue eye flares up with magic. The creature swings a massive meaty fist down to crush him into paste. Our shepherd easily sidesteps the clumsy attack and grips his glowing weapon tight for a devastating counter. Our boy drops from the ceiling like a magical guillotine. The giant pale freak is still throwing a tantrum over its dead kids, but Tehran is not here to play therapist. He brings his weapon down with absolutely zero hesitation. The monster looks up just in time to realize it messed with the wrong shepherd. Tehran puts his entire back into the swing and lands a massive purple-infused strike right into the beast. The creature hits the floor in a pool of its own blood. It curses our boy as a fake with its dying breath. The floor is already painted with the remains of the other warriors who got caught in the crossfire. But Tehran is not taking any chances with this boss fight. He readies his glowing sword for the execution as the monster lets out one final pathetic screech. With a clean and brutal slice, Tehran completely separates the monster's ugly head from its shoulders. The beast drops dead for good. Our boy immediately collapses on his butt and tries to catch his breath. Our boy catches his breath and admits he would have been absolute toast without that stolen history bloodline. He checks his glowing compass relic to confirm the mimic power is still ticking. Having to chug the mystery liquid inside is definitely a 0 out of 10 experience, but the crackling purple magic surging through his hand makes it totally worth it. Down on the floor, the ruthless Zahar candidate is coughing up his own weight in blood. Tehran stands over the broken warrior and casually notes that with a pierced lung and a shattered heart, he is definitely not making it out of this dungeon. He looks down with absolute zero sympathy and tells the guy that saving him is just way above his pay grade. The dying noble sheds a single pathetic tear and begs for his life, but our shepherd just stands there in dead silence and watches him fade to black. The stone floor is completely painted red with the shredded remains of the Zahar crew and those pale, freaky monsters. It is an absolute massacre. As green mana starts rising from the fresh corpses, our boy reflects on the fallen leader. Sure, the guy was a total scumbag who treated commoners like disposable trash, but he still fought this labyrinth tooth and nail right to the bitter end. Tehran absorbs the massive wave of energy and promises to remember the villain's name as he loots the entire room. Our boy stands over the absolute bloodbath he just caused and starts vacuuming up all that sweet green mana from the fallen goons. He pulls out that rainbow compass toy and wonders what it would feel like to pop multiple bloodline powers at the exact same time, but he decides to keep that little experiment in his back pocket for now. Flexing his aura, he realizes he just doubled his overall strength since stepping foot in this dungeon. He is casually rocking the kind of power that would take a normal noble a literal century to grind out. Looking at the chopped up bodies, he decides to ditch the magic tool so the Zahar family hit squads do not track him down. He sprints down the stone corridor and uses his search magic to scrub his glowing blue footprints from the floor. Gotta leave a 0-star review and 0 evidence. He eventually hits a dead end at a massive stone door rocking a giant glowing blue eye right in the center. Figuring he might as well try knocking, he slaps his bandaged hand against the stone. The heavy vault rumbles open immediately, leaving our guy staring into the dark room beyond. Our boy strolls into the final chamber and spots his exit. It is a swirling dark vortex right in front of a creepy throne setup. But before he dips, a glowing book on the side table catches his eye. He scoops it up to see what kind of final loot he just scored. Flipping through the pages, he realizes this is a literal recipe book for creating a Night Hunter. It requires 4 specific bloodlines and clearing this exact labyrinth of evil. Suddenly it clicks. The dungeon was literally baiting him to enter because it sensed his crazy potential. The The journal goes on to explain that those massive ugly monsters he just packed up were actually made from the flesh and blood of ancient giants. They were basically giant meat puppets kept alive through hibernation just to test whoever walked through that door. He skims past some confusing notes about an Earth Mother job advancement experiment that completely failed. Most of the ancient gibberish goes right over his head. He snaps the book shut, realizing the only thing that actually matters is that whoever built this place was desperately trying to manufacture a perfect night hunter. With the mystery solved and his pockets full of stolen mana, our shepherd decides he has overstayed his welcome. He walks right up to the swirling dark pool, ready to finally get the heck out of this creepy basement. Our boy recalls that crazy pyromaniacs attempt to artificially steal bloodlines. He wonders if it is actually possible to permanently acquire one since these holy relics can absorb and use their power. But realizing that standing around thinking about it will not give him any answers, he leaps into the dark vortex just before it disappears. He pops out the other side, landing right back in the middle of the vast desert. He takes a breath of fresh air, glad to have made it out alive, and guesses he is somewhere on the outskirts of Banapel. His giant black eagle buddy lands next to him, clearly annoyed that he took so long. Our boy gives the big bird some head pats and apologizes for the delay. Grabbing onto his gear and the eagle's massive talon, he gets lifted high into the sky. As they soar over the dunes, he does some quick math. He just wiped out the next head candidate of the Zahar family along with 10 other nobles. The entire desert is about to be turned completely upside down, and it is only a matter of time before they pin the blame on him. Deciding it is best to lay low, he figures he should leave the desert for a few months to let the heat die down before he starts digging for clues about his mother. He points his feathered Uber towards a new destination. They fly until the sand turns to snow, arriving in the freezing mountainous region known as the Gray Zone. As soon as they touch down, our boy spots a group of people trudging through the snow with all their belongings, looking like they are running from something serious. Our boy touches down in the freezing Gray Zone, specifically the fortress city of Kalamap. It looks like the locals are packing up their lives and fleeing from something serious. A squad of heavily bundled guards spot him strolling up. One of them takes one look at our guy's light jacket and the giant bird napping on his shoulder and immediately realizes he is dealing with a wizard. They bow so fast they almost eat snow, asking which esteemed noble house he belongs to. Tehran just makes a mental note to buy some actual winter gear so he stops sticking out like a sore thumb. He plays it cool, introducing himself as just a passing traveler and asking if the local lord can spare a room for the night. But the guard drops a massive bomb. Kalamap does not have a lord anymore. The guy recently kicked the bucket fighting off a dark elf invasion from the west, leaving the city completely defenseless without a single noble or knight to protect them. Tehran realizes this is a pretty sticky situation. Suddenly, the guard drops straight to his knees, prostrating himself right in the slush. He begs our boy to step up and become their new master, leaving Tehran completely speechless. Our boy is completely stunned. He just wanted a warm bed for the night, but these desperate guards are literally on their knees begging him to become the new lord of their massive snowy fortress city. Talk about a sudden promotion. The locals are literally on their hands and knees begging our silver-haired boy to become the new master of their lordless city. He is caught totally off guard by the sudden promotion. Looking out over the freezing snow-covered town, he realizes this is a massive ask. He really cannot afford to be tied down to one place right now, but seeing the absolute state these people are in tugs at his heartstrings. He decides to at least hear them out before making any crazy commitments. This instantly brings a spark of hope back to the desperate guy's eyes. Sitting down for a quick debrief, the local explains that the nightmare started 3 weeks ago. They found their monster hunters completely slaughtered on the western road, with their heavy iron weapons sliced clean through in a single strike. Things got so bad that the local lord himself had to step up, but it was a total massacre. Only one heavily battered knight managed to crawl back alive, and with his dying breath, he dropped a single terrifying word: Wraith. Our guy listens intently as the local drops the real bombshell. A scholar confirmed that controlling wraiths is the signature move of cannibalistic dark elves. Knowing these freaks are about to swarm the city and turn it into an all-you-can-eat buffet is exactly why everyone with half a brain already packed up and fled. The shepherd asks if they tried calling in the cavalry from neighboring cities, but the guy admits every single messenger got hit with a hard rejection. Nobody wants to spread their forces thin when dark elves are on the prowl. Our boy totally gets the logic behind the neighboring lords ghosting them, but it also means he is going to have a seriously tough time handling this mess all by himself. The local guy is practically kissing the floor, begging our boy to step up and become the new master of this frozen wasteland. Tehran is just standing there like, bro, what are you even talking about? Tehran asks if the whole shepherd and sheep metaphor is a local thing. The guy nods, explaining that in the Gray Zone, nobles are the shepherds and commoners are the sheep. This clicks for Tehran. He pulls out a sketch of his mom, asking if anyone has seen a dark-haired woman who would have been around 20 years old a couple decades back. The guy admits he has no clue but offers to pass the flyer around town. Looking at the sheer desperation in this dude's eyes, Tehran realizes something important. If he wants any chance of tracking down his mom, he cannot just let this city collapse into ruin. he drops the bomb. He tells the guy he is not going to be their master, but he is totally down to be their protector. The dude instantly lights up like it is Christmas morning. Tehran promises to hold the fort until the monster threat is cleared or a real lord shows up. Cut to the town square, and the entire population is already throwing a massive parade, cheering that their handsome savior has arrived to carry them to the promised land. The locals aren't exactly buying it, though. They start whispering that sure, the guy is drop-dead gorgeous, but a pretty face isn't going to scare off a horde of monsters. Our boy realizes they aren't actually mocking him. They are just terrified and building a wall of doubt so they don't get their hopes crushed again. He knows exactly how to handle this. If you want the sheep to feel safe, you have to show them the sheepdog has some serious bite. Time for a little theatrical flex. Since there are no other wizards around to call him out, he decides a flashy light show should do the trick. He raises his hand and conjures a massive swirling ball of fiery energy. He compresses the magic down as tight as it goes and drops the temperature just enough so he doesn't accidentally nuke the entire zip code. Then he fires a concentrated beam of pure golden light straight up into the freezing clouds. The beam pierces the sky and detonates into a colossal explosion of fire that completely engulfs the heavens above the mountain fortress. A sudden wave of intense heat and wind blasts through the streets. The townspeople are forced to shield their eyes in absolute shock as our guy just casually watches his artificial sun melt away the freezing winter sky. The townspeople are absolutely losing their minds over the impromptu fire show, cheering that they are finally saved from freezing to death. Our boy gives himself a mental pat on the back, figuring that little display of god-tier magic should be more than enough to secure his spot as their new protector. But reality hits him like a truck. Being a lord is not just about blowing stuff up. He finds himself stuck in a painfully boring town hall meeting where the local boomers are arguing over whether they should prioritize firewood or food. Realizing this debate is going to drag on until the next ice age, our guy steps up and casually announces he will handle the food crisis himself. The town elders are baffled, asking how exactly he plans to feed an entire city. He lays out a simple plan to hunt some game and stretch it out with a massive meat stew. But these guys are so brainwashed by noble supremacy that they refuse to let him use his divine powers for something as lowly as hunting. So he just hits them with a classic noble excuse, claiming it is a sacred ritual to make the land more fertile. They eat it right up. With the red tape cleared, he hops onto his giant pet eagle and takes to the snowy skies. He flies over the dark mountain ranges, using his enhanced perception to spot the glowing eyes of the local wildlife hiding in the dark. It is time for a little late-night grocery run. Our boy literally herds an entire zoo down the mountain. Goats, wolves, leopards, and giant rabbits all march in a perfect line. He casually flexes that this is just a bit more tiring than his usual sheep herding gig. The townspeople are absolutely flabbergasted. They watch this massive walking buffet stroll right through the front gates, wondering why their previous lords were so utterly useless compared to this guy. They waste zero time getting to work. The locals start slicing and dicing, hanging up massive cuts of fresh meat to make sure nobody starves this winter. But our guy is not done being the ultimate MVP. He stands in front of the grandest building in town and just hands it over to the displaced citizens. When they ask where he plans to sleep, he just shrugs and says the city hall lodging is fine as long as it has a bed. The locals are completely stunned by his humility. The refugees move into the massive estate with all their bags, literally crying tears of joy. They start comparing him to a divine shepherd who pities his flock and watches over them. Our fake lord catches his reflection in the window and rubs his chin. He honestly could not care less about being worshipped as a god. He just needs this frozen wasteland to stabilize so he can finally track down some clues about his missing mom. Word of our boy's massive flex spreads across the region like wildfire. Over at Beacon Castle, the local lords are scratching their heads trying to figure out who this 20-year-old kid is that just claimed the title of city protector and started setting up trade routes like a seasoned CEO. Meanwhile, the suits at Balan Castle are sweating bullets. They heard all about his sky-filling fire magic and know for a fact this guy is not someone to mess with. And the paranoid guys riding around Heron Castle think the whole thing is super sus. They figure he must be a planted spy since he conveniently took over a hollowed-out city right next to the Arabian army. But since nobody actually wants the smoke, they all agree to just smile and nod from a distance. Back at his new crib, our silver-haired shepherd feels his ears burning but brushes it off. He has bigger fish to fry anyway. He stares at a sketch of his mom, realizing he has 8 whole cities and over 100 villages to search. The math is definitely not mathing in his favor. Just as he is about to clock out, a subordinate walks in with a fresh report. The guy apologizes for handing him nothing but L's all week, but promises this new lead is actually legit. He hands over a document detailing a local vagrant named Egon. Apparently, this homeless dude used to run an inn and claims a woman matching the exact portrait stayed there 18 years ago. Tehran narrows his eyes, realizing the timeline matches up perfectly. They bring the vagrant in, and the guy immediately drops to his knees, praising Tehran for the free food and shelter. Our boy gets straight to business, demanding the exact details of when this guy saw the woman in the portrait. The vagrant starts his trip down memory lane, flexing that he actually used to run a legit establishment before he hit rock bottom. Back in the day, his town was an absolute mess thanks to the massive turf war between the Arabian and Zahar clans. Right in the middle of that chaos, a young pregnant woman rolled up to his spot looking for a room. The guy mentioned she was traveling totally alone and looked incredibly anxious. He remembers her rubbing her belly and begging her unborn baby not to turn out like its father. Hearing this specific detail hits our boy like a truck. He grips the sketch, his eyes going wide as he realizes he finally found a real trace of his mom. The former innkeeper drops to his knees to thank our boy for saving him from starving in the streets. But Tehran cuts the gratitude short. He just wants the tea on the woman from the portrait. The old man winds the clock back to his glory days when he actually ran a respectable joint. He remembers a young woman pulling up to his inn late at night. She was barely 20 and rocking a baby bump. Traveling solo while pregnant is a massive red flag in this world, so the innkeeper just assumed some deadbeat baby daddy abandoned her. Hearing this, Tehran freezes. The timeline matches up perfectly. He finally found a solid lead on his mom. The old guy adds that she was asking for directions out west but had zero clue about the local geography. Plus, she was riding a super flashy golden horse that definitely screamed high society. Tehran absorbs every detail like a sponge. Later that night, our boy is staring at the ceiling trying to decode his mom's cryptic warning about not turning out like his father. Just as he is spiraling into an existential crisis, his giant pet eagle decides it is time to play in the sandbox and starts scratching out a message to get his attention. Back in his room, our boy is chilling with his giant bird companion. He tells the oversized chicken he isn't hurt, his head is just a bit cluttered right now. The bird scratches out a message in the sand saying he suffers when talking. Our boy asks if the bird remembers its mother. The bird shakes its head no, and our boy gives it some head pats, saying they are the same since his mom has been gone for a long time too. The bird gets back to scratching and presents its new chosen name, Vijay. Our boy is stunned. He realizes the bird wants to take his mother's name to comfort him. He smiles and tells the bird it should be more careful when picking a name, but the stubborn eagle just taps the board again, insisting it is Vijay. Our boy gives in and officially welcomes Vijay to the squad. Deciding they have rested enough, he opens the window and grabs onto Vijay's legs. They take off into the snowy night sky. Down below, the townspeople of Kalamap are throwing a whole parade, cheering for their new protector. High above the cheering town, our boy is already plotting his exit strategy. He admits that playing the permanent hero is way too burdensome, and he definitely wants to avoid settling down in this frozen wasteland. He hitches a ride on his giant eagle to do some aerial recon. Closing his eyes to share the bird's vision, he scans the snowy peaks for any trace of the dark elves. Finding absolutely nothing just makes him more paranoid. If those creepy necromancers just packed up and moved, it means they could pull up for a sneak attack at literally any moment. Suddenly, his eye flares bright blue as his radar goes absolutely crazy. He spots a massive surge of magical energy erupting in the distant mountains. And worse, the giant mana source suddenly hits the gas and speeds right up. Our shepherd is genuinely shook, realizing this mystery entity somehow locked onto his position from miles away. The blue energy pulses violently in the sky, and he immediately commands his bird to pivot south. But before he can even make a clean getaway, he catches a familiar pattern shifting in the wind. Long dark hair flutters against the sky as a woman in a blue cloak gracefully floats down to block his path. It looks like the Arabian princess has finally tracked him down. Tehran is out doing some snowy recon when a familiar face literally drops in from the sky. It is the storm princess herself, Mesa. She notes it has only been a few months since they last saw each other, but our boy has definitely hit a massive growth spurt and looks way more like a full-grown adult now. The touching reunion is immediately interrupted when his giant bird starts aggressively pecking at his coat for some attention. Mesa asks who the feathered third wheel is, so Tehran introduces the eagle as his family, Vijay. The bird absolutely puffs her chest out with pride. Mesa thinks the whole soul-bound companion thing is super romantic and wishes she had a hype man just like her. Tehran gets down to business and asks what she is doing all the way out in this frozen wasteland. Mesa drops some heavy lore. Her squad recently wrecked the underground kingdom, but a nasty wraith sorcerer managed to slip away. She figures the guy bolted east to restock his undead army and is probably hiding out in the legendary settlement of the blind dwarves deep in the mountains. Tehran takes a long look at the snowy peaks, realizing his peaceful shepherd gig is about to get a lot more complicated. The Storm Princess wraps up her intel drop. She is super relieved the rogue sorcerer did not flee into the gray zone since her people have a tough time operating there. With a quick smile and a promise to catch up later, she blasts off into the snowy night sky like a human rocket. Our boy watches her go before feeling a tug on his coat. He looks down to find his giant eagle companion scratching some serious shade into the snow. The bird is basically saying that if our guy had met the princess first, he totally would have picked her as a partner instead. Tehran just chuckles and reassures his feathered bro that he chose him, causing the bird to flap around in a total panic. Still, the comment gets Tehran thinking about why everyone keeps saying he and the Storm Princess are such a perfect match. He decides to put a pin in that thought for now. Back in the bustling town square of Kalamap, our guy is just trying to catch up on some light reading while casually floating his magic around. But his chill time is interrupted when a guard rushes in to announce that some very important guests have arrived. Tehran is confused but heads out to find a whole squad of fancy nobles from the neighboring cities bowing respectfully at his feet. Tehran cuts right to the chase and asks who is doing the talking. An old dude with a fancy eagle crest steps up to bat. He offers up a bunch of beautiful women from their families to act as concubines and help Tehran's house prosper. Classic political bribery. Tehran sees right through the nonsense. He knows they are just trying to snatch up Kalamap now that the Western threat is dealt with. The old guy tries to smooth it over by claiming a mixed bloodline is just good diplomacy. Tehran politely declines the harem but hits them with a wild counteroffer. He tells them to track down a specific woman who passed through the gray zone 20 years ago. Whoever brings him the best intel gets the ruling rights to the entire city. The reps are absolutely floored that he would trade a whole city for one woman. But Tehran slaps on a strict condition. Whoever takes over has to swear on the gods to protect the citizens or their rights get revoked instantly. The old guy is baffled and asks why Tehran is going to such crazy lengths for a bunch of commoners when he has already done plenty. Tehran just gives him a knowing smile. Later on, Tehran chills on a snowy rooftop with his giant bird. He reflects on his simple goals. He does not want to be a king or a conqueror, he just wants to protect the sheep from the wolves and be a good shepherd in this messed up world. Suddenly our boy's magic radar pings hard. He spots a massive mana signature sneaking into the city hall like they own the place. Not about to let some random knight crash his snowy paradise, Tehran Swan dives off the roof and sticks a superhero landing right in the guy's path. But when he looks up ready to throw hands, all that tough guy energy instantly evaporates. Standing right there with a warm smile is his old mentor Kjorn, looking like he just got back from a grocery run.